that off. And welcome to Benchmonster TV.
I'm Ashley Lynn Condre.
I am the Benchmonster, Ryan Kennelly.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on Benchmonster TV. We are super excited tonight. We have a very special guest for you. AJ Roberts is here, so I don't think we want to waste any time or keep him waiting. So I think we're going to pretty much bring him right on in. Ryan's got a little intro, and
Yeah,
we're super excited to have AJ here.
Are we on live here? Is everybody can hear us and all that good stuff?
I mean, we don't have, it takes a while for everybody to get on, so we'll kind of...
Okay, I don't see anybody here, so it concerns me.
That's a little weird, because usually we do.
We are live, so... is anybody out there?
Somebody could,
Post
something just so we know that you can hear us and see us.
Where is my stream?
That looks weird.
Huh?
We've never had that before where there's...
Yeah, I don't have a stream.
Looks weird. There's more viewers popping on, but there's no...
Yeah. Holy crap. Oh, we're good, AJ?
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, you're the best.
Okay, maybe my chat's effed up, so
That's
let's
weird.
move into this little video that I got here, and I'll introduce our guest here.
Let's do it.
Let's see. Do I have it on here, Ashley?
Have what?
Oh my God. Is it not on here?
Isn't that your intro?
No, that's not it. Oh boy, I screwed up.
Oh, we're off to a great start here, ladies and
Benchmonster
gentlemen.
foul.
Ooh, I
Oh,
hope it's not...
son of a bummer. Hold on a minute. Ryan Kennelly screwed up.
Good Lord. I'm so sorry, you guys.
I'm sorry, guys. I got to find this.
Oh, wow. That's embarrassing for you.
I'm totally embarrassed.
You should be. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. Oh my gosh.
And there I got it.
Here we go.
I gotta turn down the volume on that. It's awfully loud, so you can hear me talk. Inzer canvas squat suit. I have a few of those myself.
A squat suit?
Yes.
You do?
I don't wear them.
I've never seen you wear it.
AJ with 1130 right here. Good Lord, son.
Nice.
Smoke show.
Easy. Got some bench press.
Little
here.
830 bench right here in the
Jeez.
Phenom bench shirt, something I was familiar with back in the day.
Nice.
One of the best shirts I've ever worn. Normal bench shirts. I guess they're old school bench shirts now. The Phenom had a lot of pop in the material. 830 bench, awesome lift there, AJ.
Smooth, yeah, great.
I'll have to ask AJ what he weighed here when he competed. I know he competed at 308, but
Exactly.
if he hydrated up afterwards, and
That's a good question.
another awesome bench press here real quick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was smooth.
Lockout strength,
Easy.
awesome.
They look so easy.
905 PR bench right here real quick.
905. Good Lord.
Tight fitting Phenom shirt
after
there.
Squatting that kind of way, that's insane. How he does it.
.905 bench press right here. And lockout power galore right there.
Oh,
Boom.
good lift.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
Moving on to the deadlift.
My favorite.
Ashley's favorite lift here. 710 pounds,
Oh
empty
my
bar.
gosh.
Oh yeah.
That was like an empty bar. That was like 135. Good Lord.
795 deadlift right here. Effortless.
Effortless. Flew out.
And one more to boot, 820.
Damn.
Yep. That's all right.
Nice try.
Ended
Nice
up
try.
with a
Flew off the
2830
ground.
total right there. Nothing wrong with that either.
Ooh.
Well, let's bring on AJ real quick.
Yep, let's get him on here.
AJ Roberts, how you doing, buddy?
Hey.
Good.
We had a little technical difficulty there.
So sorry.
It's
Oh
Kennelly's
my
fault.
gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm throwing him right under the bus.
I
That was
I
totally
deserve
his
to be
fault.
thrown into the bus. I didn't
got
have
the
your video
questions,
ready.
I
I'm
did my
totally
part,
embarrassed.
And yeah, he messed up the video.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take me out and beat me to
Pretty
death. I don't care.
embarrassing, but
It's always the way.
Well, it's good to have you, AJ.
yeah,
Like I
thank
said,
you
we
so much
haven't
for joining us. We're so excited.
we haven't talked in years. Like, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy to think back. Like I've met you right at the beginning of my career. You know.
Ashley,
here we are now.
Ashley's got a lot of questions for you. What year was when did you start the powerlifting career?
Well, I started in high school, so it's gonna be probably 2000, like 4 or 5, when I first got into competing.
Okay.
And it was I was second year, my senior year, but it was my second year as a foreign exchange student. And there's some stupid rule in Oregon that you can only play sports for 1 year as a foreign exchange student. And there just happened to be a lady who lived. I was in a town, Ione, Oregon. You'll know it. Nobody listening will, but it's like there's 250 people in the whole town.
Oh wow, small town.
And in that town, there was a lady who was a WABDL deadlift world record holder, and she basically, like, we had a weightlifting program at school, and so like I was like, oh, maybe I should try that. And she trained lifted on this team, Buzz's Gym in Boardman, Oregon.
Right.
And so that was the first introduction. I went to my first meet at his gym, just a little gym, and I was bit by the iron bug, as they say. You know?
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, Ashley, would you like to ask some questions? You got a job to do over here, and I don't want to interfere.
Right into it.
Yeah.
So when and how? I mean, you kind of touched on this, but maybe you can go a little deeper. When and how did you get into weightlifting in general, and how did you get introduced into powerlifting?
Yeah, I grew up in England, and there's not much lifting that went on in England. Obviously, the great Andy Bolton's from there, but not too many lifters come out of there. And but growing up, World's Strongest Man was always on TV, and they would do these marathons over Christmas, and every night I would watch it. And I always thought to myself that one day I'll be a strongman. And so Zavakis, I think that's how you say his name. Anyway, he was the World's Strongest Man at the time, and he was a former powerlifter. So, I knew about powerlifting, and I somehow convinced my parents to let me put one of those, cement weight things that you get, York weights, in my room. And so I just started working out. I had no idea what I was doing. I just do tons of reps and bench press, curls, that kind of stuff. But that's when I first started lifting. Then I came over to America as a foreign exchange student, and I was $170 at the time. I played basketball for England. That's why I came to America. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. And I came over to Ione, Oregon, that town. Like I said, tiny. So, they wanted me to play football and do basketball, and then also do track and field. Well, the football coach was also the weightlifting coach, who was also the science teacher. And long story short, he had a stack of Bigger, Faster, Stronger magazines. And I thought, wow, I'm actually going to be able to, work out as a class in school. This is going to be awesome. I asked him if I could borrow a magazine, and before long, I'd gone through about 3-4 years worth of magazines. Oh, wow. And that was Bigger, Faster, Stronger, for those that don't know, is written by Greg Shepard. He was a former powerlifter who used box squats, towel benches, and things like that. So immediately, I didn't even know that I was training using these methods that, Westside used, Ryan, you used. Like, I had no idea. But all I knew was there was one guy he was an older brother of a kid. He benched 405, coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. He'd come back at the summers and Christmas and all the breaks from college, and he'd come work out with us, and he'd put up big weights. And I just knew I wanted to be strong. And, I made that a goal of mine to get really, really strong. And by my senior year, I had every record, or I didn't outright have every lifting record, but I had every record or shared the record with someone else from school. So to me, lifting just became a part of who I was, and it was a place where I excelled, which of course helped.
Right.
Right. That's awesome. Okay. So you kind of touched on this, but did you play any sports in high school? If so, which ones?
Yeah, so played American football. My junior year, played American football, basketball, and then did track and field. And I actually threw the javelin, threw the shot put, and then ran on the 400-meter relay team. So 100-meter relay team, 400-meter relay team. And I would dead sprint the 400 meters and then collapse after every race. Like that was it. Like that was my max VO2 test. But so I did that, and then my senior year I wasn't allowed to play sports because they only have you can only play for 1 year. So I actually started competing in the powerlifting, but I also was on the bowling team because it was not a sanctioned school sport. But I was obsessed with whatever I did. So with the bowling, we'd go bowling every night. It was a lot of fun. But we quickly, all of us got the shoes and that, and we actually made it to the state finals, and our team finished second to last, so not last. But it was crazy. We rode up to state finals, and we all had, we had polo shirts we had printed ourselves and stuff like that. But like these kids there were like pro bowlers, so they had suitcases with different balls in because the lane conditions changed, and it was crazy. But it was a lot of fun. But lifting really became my primary sport because of that, and that's I wanted to compete, I wanted to have an outlet, and I was able to do that with powerlifting, and so that's really once that became the thing, it was like. I didn't realize there was no money in it and nothing like that. Right. I saw the guys on TV were world's strongest man, so I figured you could make a career out of it. I figured I'd get really, really strong in powerlifting and then move into strongman. But yeah, so that was about the early career with sports and things like that. And started off just training for sports, but when I realized that it was a sport in itself and it was competitions, man, I was all for it. Winning those trophies, like that was the coolest thing ever.
What was your bowling average, by the way?
It's in high school. It was just over two. It was like 210 normally, and then a couple of years ago we went bowling for the first time in a long time, and I didn't even get 100. Yeah. I was the most embarrassed. I was like, "What the hell?" But it's like anything. If you don't use you lose it, right?
That's right.
Practicing, yeah. Let's see here. So how much did you squat, bench, and deadlift in high school? Maybe tell us as a freshman and as a senior, if you.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't even lift as a freshman, right? I started lifting probably equivalent to sophomore year in England, and I never squatted or did anything like that. So, I benched. I think I had 100 pounds in weights at the house that I could do reps with. When I graduated, I'd done a 600-pound box squat, and I'd done a 275 bench, and I actually had deadlift 515. And so at the time, my deadlift was my strongest lift. And that my senior year, I actually did a 545 at WBDL Worlds and won the under 18 championships or whatever it was. But yeah, so like my deadlift was actually always the better lift early in the career. And I didn't even want to compete in the bench press because it was so embarrassingly low for me. And I couldn't get to the 315 mark no matter what I tried. That was the goal, 3 plates. And I just couldn't do it. I've been chasing it. And it was, Brent who basically said to me, like, you gotta do all 3 lifts. Like deadlift is not a power lifter.
AJ, do you stay in touch with Brent at all?
We haven't talked in a long time, but yeah, I did for a while, but everybody moves around and moves on. I think last I saw his son, was a really good wrestler. I think he got injured and he was competing. And so it's really cool. Braxton is his son. And, he used to come to the gym, the Iron Gladiator gym, which was the back of the Forza gym that, you and I both trained out of. And I remember he would be doing pull-ups as a 2-year-old. And so I followed him a little bit. He's on Instagram, but Brent's a little bit like most people his age, not on social media. And but yeah, he was always a great guy. We always got along, and he taught me so much. And it was he was really my early mentor, and I was lucky to have him.
Yes, sir.
I made that trip hour and a half, each way, Wednesdays and Saturdays to train with him. Matt Ludwig from Washington State University is a strength and conditioning coach there, would drive up and I would just tag along. But yeah, I was just very lucky to be in an area that had guys like him and you, and people like that, real world record holders, not record holder in this federation, that federation, like
That's right.
all-time world record
Brent
holders.
myself, yeah.
All in my backyard. And to me, like, through a series of lucky events, I guess, I actually had access to everything that you could possibly need to succeed. And I matched that with my attitude and my desire. It was, perfect beginning.
Right.
So it was a lot of fun. And, I got to see, Brent always said this, I got to see people lift weights that most people never saw. So my reality was that I should be squatting 1,000 pounds. I think at the time your best bench was like 875 or something like that. It was around that. You'd done your 800, you'd moved up. But like I was seeing you bench these numbers, and when you see that stuff, and it just becomes an expectation. Like one day I'm going to be that strong, And so I was very lucky to see that, and I think that that's something that most people unfortunately nowadays don't get around. They just watch online, but it's not the same. Like it's not the same to watch a video versus be there and see someone load that weights up. Like that's some scary shit. The numbers that people are putting up back then, and even
that's
today.
True.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How much did you weigh in high school?
Well, like I said, I was $170 when I came to America, and I was 190 when I graduated high school. Freshman year of college, Brent, that's when I started training with Brent, and he told me I needed to gain a lot of weight. So I would go to I lived in the dorms, and they had a 2-hour window, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You could go eat. You swipe once, you go in, or you could eat. So I set my schedule up where I go in at the beginning, and I would sit there for 2 hours, and I'd eat 3 times in 2 hours. I was eating 9 times a day.
Nice.
I gained 65 pounds my freshman year.
Whoa, AJ, shit.
That's incredible.
So yeah. I learned to force feed. Like they had burgers and ice cream, so it was you eat your staples, and then you get the ice cream, and then you just sit and wait. Yeah, it was just get food in no matter what, and then wait until you, and then in the end I would load up my pockets and walk out with food and have food to graze on until the next feed-in time.
That's how you do it, AJ. That's how you do it right there. I'm impressed, man.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a lot of weight. That's awesome. Let's see here. When was your first meet, and how much did you squat, bench, and deadlift?
Yeah, so my first full power meet was probably, it was an Iron Gladiator meet, Spokane, Washington. I wore an INZA Z suit, and I think I squatted 550, and I think I missed 600 if memory serves me right. I had the INZA EHPHD or whatever that bench shirt was. Yeah, something like that. And I think I benched in the threes. I know that. Like that, I was good with the shirt right away. It was my bench press, my natural bench press was very shirted bench pressy. So I came low. I had my elbows closer to the body, and so I put that shirt on. It really helped. And then deadlift, I probably deadlifted 550, something like that. But yeah, I was in that INZA Z suit, and that thing was about as thick as a singlet that you get today.
I had one,
other than the leg.
Total thick singlet. That's all it was. Yeah, not a lot of carryover in that thing.
Yeah, it just had that seam on the leg that would cut you open. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then basically I said to Brent, I'm tired of this, and he got me a canvas squat suit, and I think I had a old one of his Max DL deadlift suits. So my lift started to jump off, and I remember, and I don't know about you, Ryan, early, but like every meet I would get like 50 to 100 pounds on my total, and it's just like to me it was just normal to do that, because I was so far off of what the world record numbers were. Why wouldn't I get every meet? So I competed probably 3-4 times a year and made those jumps, and it wasn't until I got to those bigger numbers that like the 1,000-pound squat took forever to get in a competition and things like that. But it was a lot of fun back in the early days, the old outlaw powerlifting forum and go heavy powerlifting forum, and everybody would talk shit, and
I remember
it was a fucking good time.
People trolling under fake names. I've been there. Yeah, but you're right. Back in the early days, it seems like every bench meet I did, my Paul Roch, my handoff guy, and my crew were just like, we don't know how Kennelly's doing it. I was going up like 30 pounds every time I went on the bench platform. 30. It was crazy, but then you get up to a certain point and the gains start to get a little slower, but then, powerlifting gear improves and takes us to other levels. And that happened with the Phenom shirt for me. You know, eventually after wearing a denim or EHPHD denim, and then it was Rage X and then Phenom. So I don't mean to interrupt. I was just rambling. Yep. Ashley, go ahead. Sorry. Shut me up.
Okay, I can do that. No problem. I got you. Let's see. How long did you train before you went to Westside?
So let's see. I probably 6 years. 6 years. So 2 years in high school, 4 years in college. You know, with Brent, and then I graduated college and essentially, almost 6 years. Because I graduated college and then I took a job in Owensboro, Kentucky, running a health club, personal training department at a health club in Owensboro, Kentucky, just so I could be closer to Westside. Brent had retired. He had something wrong with his equilibrium. Every time he was traveling,
I remember that.
He was collapsing, and so it was all messed up, and so he couldn't travel, and training became hard. And so he had really stepped back on training because he was just trying to be healthy, and his kids were real young at the time. And of course, I didn't understand then. Having 2 young kids now, I completely get how savage that is to a lifestyle. So, you know, I was working with Brent. We were doing Iron Gladiator stuff, but Brent really wasn't training for powerlifting. We had a small crew that we trained with. But you know, I didn't really have a crew. And Louis kept saying to me, you move out to Columbus. And I was like, I don't have a job. And so I got offered a job in Owensboro, Kentucky. It was 4 hours from Westside. I said, that's close enough. I can drive over once a week. So I moved to Owensboro, and after about 4 months there, I started driving over. And after 8 months, Louis was like, are you going to move here or what? And I was like, and so I called up Dave Tate and basically told him, because I built a gym and everything, and I had one training partner, Dustin Minks, that I trained out with. He lived in Indiana though. He had a full Westside gym in this like shed, like the 4 garage shed or whatever he'd built. I remember the first time I went to train with him, he tells me he's got all these reverse hypers, these limited edition ones, all that. I think he's full of shit. I roll up. He's got every special hyper you could imagine. He's got everything, man. Like monolift, no training crew though. So basically, I started driving up Fridays. I would do a call in the morning. I didn't schedule any clients Friday afternoon. I'd drive 4 hours, train with Dave Hoff and Bob Coe, and then most of the time they would leave because, you know, they had other shit to do. And Dave did a lot of his accessory works always on like the next day and stuff like that. But we would squat, and then I would want to use all the equipment, and Louis would be in there. And so that's when I started talking to Louis more and stuff like that. And finally, I just said, okay, I'm going to move up here. And you know, and that's when I pulled the trigger. And like I said, I spoke to Dave Tate, and he basically put it like, because I was like unsure what to do, and he was like, you either move and find out if you can be a world record holder, or you don't. And it was, you know, that was on the back of probably a 2-hour conversation. But that's what it came down to. You know, was I willing to put all the eggs in the basket? You know, do you want to make money, you know, doing what you're doing, or do you want to be a world record holder? You make a choice, figure out the rest. And you know, that conversation really was the deciding moment for me. Like, you know, I got to do it. Like, I'll never know. I don't want to be that guy who says, oh, you know, I could have, would have, should have. So pulled the trigger and moved over there. And you know, I want to say that was the end of 07, 08.
End of 07. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. How long did you train at Westside, and can you tell us about your time at Westside? I know that's a pretty vague question. It's a very vague question, but you know, just kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, I was with Westside, I think, just over 4 years, and you know, really, when I went there, you know, I thought I was going to be there forever. And there's actually a video. I think CrossFit shot the video, but we were talking, and I remember saying, man, people come and go. I don't understand. Like, how could anybody walk away from this sport? Like, how could anybody like why does everybody leave Westside? I just didn't understand. And you know, I set out with the goals I had to be the 308 world record holder. That's why I went to Westside. You know, that's what I want to do. I never did I think I would do it so fast. But the thing with Westside when I went there is Louis I looked at Westside, it was like a laboratory, and he had been experimenting on his lifters for 20 years, and I just got the upside of that. So like things I'd seen in the DVDs, you know, because I'd watched all of Louis' DVDs, I'd read all of his articles,
Same.
you know, like I was a student of the sport. You know, I had your book, you know, and like you talked about Louis, so that's when I started. Like you know, Brent had his DVD that he talked about Louis. You talked about Louis in your book, so that's how I got obsessed with Westside, because all the guys that I looked up to that were doing massive things all mentioned this guy, Louis Simmons. So I had all these DVDs, everything. I go to Westside, and the first thing I realized is like, why don't you do half the shit that I've watched? And it's like, oh well, because Dave Tate blew his pec off, and you know, like all these different things. And I was like, damn. So, you know, one of the things that Dave said before I moved there was Louis will say shit and you won't understand why he's saying it, but trust me, all he's trying to do is get you stronger. So don't get pissed off with him. Don't get upset. Just fucking do what he says. Like, don't fight him. So right away, Louis is telling me to do weird little exercises, special movements, stuff like that. And you know, he's telling me my glutes are weak and all this. And, you know, I'd already squatted 1,003 when I moved there. And I'm thinking, my glutes are weak. What are you talking about, old man? But, you know, all right, I'll do what you say. I'll do what you say. And that was really why I think I excelled under Louis, was because of Dave Tate had kind of told me, you know, because I was sponsored by him at the time. He told me Louis probably wouldn't let that last very long, which it didn't, and that's how I ended up in the ends of gear again. But you know, he really laid it out for me, and because he did that and told me how Westside operates, you know, the different characters you have in there. You have your strongest person, your weakest person. You have the people that Louis, the supporters who are there to help those that are strong. You know, like, and like I went in that gym and I could just see all these different roles that people naturally took on. You know, Louis was a coach. He was like a player coach. He trained with us. And you have to extract information from him. So I'd go to breakfasts, I'd ask him questions, and he loved that. You know, most people would get annoyed. You know, I'm in his ear all the time. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And he just loved to explain all that shit. And, you know, he would say, oh, I try to talk to, you know, so-and-so about this. Lifters who were world record holders in the past, you know, and they threw the books away or they weren't interested. And so that's how Louis and I became close. And so, you know, we had great crews and things like that. But, you know, I was lucky enough to just have Tate tell me like exactly how Louis would behave, how he would act. And so he was never able, like, I never took anything personal. I always saw the relationship for what it was. I was there to get my name on that board to break world records. He wasn't there to be my dad, my friend, none of that shit. And so I was able to step back and see that. And it wasn't until, you know, when I left Westside, the reason I left, and, you know, I took Louis to breakfast and, you know, told him all of this. And then 2 years later, we had another conversation and I kind of explained it all again. But I mean, I literally thought I was going to die. Like, I got to a point where, you know, the meet I did, the 1,200 squat, like my nose would just bleed all day long. Like, I was so big. I was so exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I always tell this story. I didn't know I had sleep apnea back then, right? So I was 300. I walked around at like 320, 325 most of the time, and I was so exhausted that like the rumble strip on the freeway saved my life so many times. And it was one of those things where like I didn't get much sleep, so I became more and more paranoid, and like, you know, I had all these crazy thoughts, and like I just was just a really bad place, and literally I just thought I was going to die. And then the morning after the 1205 that meet, I went to, and he was like, AJ, man, I really think you could beat Donnie Thompson. I really think you could beat Super D. He was like, you're going to have to be like 380, 400, but I think you could do it. And I just was like, and it was the first time ever that he had said anything or anyone had said anything where I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I had always told him, like I told him, I'm gonna have a top 10 bench. AJ, you never have a motherfucking top 10 bench. Like, he would say that shit to motivate me, but like I would be telling him what I'm gonna do and me what he thinks he can do, and he was probably right. I would have either died or actually done what he said.
Right.
But in my mind, I just couldn't comprehend it, and it was like I just knew I was done. It was like, and so I didn't know and not lift. So the only thing I knew to do was, if I'm not going to be a Westside lifter and lift, years later when we sat down at the Arnold Classic or during that weekend, you know, he was like, AJ, you didn't have to leave. You could have fucking lost weight. You could have, like, I never would have, you know, I just wanted you in the gym to coach. But you know, you have to do what you have to do. And at that point in time, the only thing I knew to do was to eject, you know,
Yeah.
like, and bounce from everything that I knew, because I would have got sucked into that. And I had seen the guys in the gym who were former world record holders who were still struggling to accept that they got injured, they got hurt, and they were still chasing ghosts. And it was very depressing to watch.
Yeah.
And also to see Louis' relationship with them, because like that diminished so much. You know, not to say that that would have been my relationship with him, but when those are your examples, that's what we have to go off of. So, you know, that was basically the way through it. But yeah, it was a wild ride, and so much happened. And it was really the peak of multiply powerlifting at that time too. So, you know, me and Hoff were pushing numbers, and we were competing against each other, but we were teammates. And you know, he's obviously gone on and continued to push the things, but where's everybody else, you know? And and we're seeing some stuff with the benching now because of the advancement of gear. I hope we see some advancements in gear and squat and stuff like that, just to see the momentum, right? I think that, you know, advancements in the gear start to get people excited again. I know it's got me excited again. So
yeah. So you had sleep apnea, and you did not have a CPAP machine. Is that correct?
yeah, no, I never had a CPAP machine at the time. And,
Wow, AJ, you know,
yeah.
I don't mean to tell a story, but you know, I had the same problem, and being exhausted and falling asleep during the day and not getting deep REM sleep, you know, and I got that CPAP machine. And a long story short, I benched at the Arnold March of 2007, and I did a 903. And I seemed to be plateaued. I got that machine in May, and by the end of the year, I was benching 1050. So it changed my lifting career. And it just telling me that story, man. If you had had a CPAP machine, God, who knows, AJ? I mean, you would have got quality REM sleep again, and you could have, because my body weight went from 310 up to, I had to stop squatting at 355 because I couldn't weigh myself on a normal scale anymore. And I got scared because my handoff guy kept telling me I was going to die. And I was so big, and I think my biggest was like 363. And I wasn't pretty looking, but I was fucking strong. And that CPAP machine, let me tell you, man, it changed my lifting career for the better. But yeah, I mean, when I heard that on the Westside documentary, Louis wanted you up over 350 pounds, and the way you were talking, it just definitely sounded like you didn't have a CPAP. And I know what that's like. I mean, you wake up in the middle of the night panicking like you're drowning, and because you stop breathing in your sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I would run to the sink
in
the bathroom, just like trying to get, like, because I couldn't breathe, like in a panic attack.
Yes.
You know, and then mix that with, like, you know, I had night terrors as well. So I was waking up panicking. Gosh. You know, it was terrible. And you know, when you're young, you don't want to listen. You don't want to go to doctor.
Exactly.
Like that was like, so that was the other problem. I was, you know, naive and stupid. And instead of going the route of like, okay, like, how do I do this and not die? I just went, okay, I'm not going to do it. And, you know, I don't regret it, but I definitely think I could have keep lifting. And, you know, for the last 10 years, there's definitely been a void. You know, I did the bodybuilding. I think we're going to talk about it, but there's definitely been a void from not competing, you know, and I realized that, like, I don't know who I said to Chad, I thought I could just let that drag it, like, tuck the dragon away, let the dragon sleep, and I'm, you know, that beast can't be tamed, and it's got to come out and play, otherwise, you know, I'm just going to be miserable. So yeah, it's a shift. And, you know, unfortunately, Louis' passing was what reignited everything for me, and made me start questioning a lot of stuff. But it's funny, I was saying, even when he died, the old man fucking motivated me. So he's the son of a bitch, you know.
Oh man.
All right, Ashley, you got another question there?
Yeah. Can you tell us about the crew at Westside? Like, who were the members when you first joined, and who was still there, or who had showed up as your time was coming to an end? And maybe a little bit about some of the members that you were closest to, maybe if there were some members that you butted heads with, just anything about, you know, kind of the crew there and your relationships with some of them.
I came in a really weird time. So I was training with Dave Hoff, and, you know, I didn't know any of the drama or nothing like that, but, you know, a lot of guys had left. You know, Panora had kind of, you know, he had become the strongest in the gym. Greg Panora at 242. Chuck had left and gone to Lexington Extreme. Matt Wenning had left and gone to Lexington Extreme. And I was coming in to train with Dave, and the night crew was kind of just Dave, and there was a couple older lifters, but like the morning crew was pretty sparse. And I was I think it was a week before I moved up there, Dave decided to go to Lexington. And I don't know what happened or why he went to Lexington. He was only there for like a month. So thank God I didn't go with him. But he was saying, hey, just come train at Lexington. I said, I didn't move to Columbus, Ohio to go train at Lexington Extreme. I didn't have nothing against any of those guys. I didn't know any of them, right? But I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And so Louis like, you're going to train in the morning crew. And like at the time, like Phil Harrington was there. Tony Balagoni was there, he's the strongest human being I've ever trained with. He could never put what he could have done in gear if he had figured it out would have been crazy. But he was the strongest guy in the gym by far. Matt Smith was there. He was legendary Westside lifter, and so a lot of guidance from him. But like I said, Greg was there. Luke Edwards was there. Who else? And then that was like the main group when I was there. Tony Ramos as well. Tony was he trained sometimes in George Halbert's crew and stuff like that. So he was there. Traditional old benchers that were there that had set the records early, which was cool. And then Louis, I was training with Louis in the morning crew. So over the years, Jake Adam came in, so we were all training together. Hoff came back, and that crew his night crew started to build up a little bit. And so we had a really good group of super fucking strong guys, and people would come visit all the time. And they, like I said, I was lucky. I got to train with Brent, and I got to see Ryan train. And so I knew what speed work was, right? I knew what speed work was. You move fucking fast. People would come train with us, and they couldn't keep up. They couldn't understand how were we doing 12 sets of 2 in less than 30 minutes. Like, it was just fucking mind blowing to them. And Billy Mignon, he was a legendary Southside lifter. He started coming and training with us, which was fucking awesome because I used to read all his stories online. And so it was like, to me, he was a living legend. He never saw it like that, but it was a lot of fun having him there. And it was just great. And then, you had you guys that would come in and train randomly. Travis Bell was a bench only guy that trained with us. He was really, really strong. So that Wednesday mornings with us, that would really push the workouts up. But yeah, and then towards the end, most of the guys like Greg had left. Luke had was going through his kidney issues. Right. There was a guy named Shaq there. He was a cool guy. But most of those guys were still there. Josh Connolly had come in. He was a big deadlifter. I think he deadlifted 9 something. Mm-hmm. Chris Spiegel came in. He's like the first deadlifted over 9 raw. And guys like that. So, yep. There was a lot of guys like that were coming through. Jimmy Pacifico was training there every now and again with us.
Oh, wow.
Larry's kid. So that was cool. But yeah, it was odd because I remember when I decided I wanted to hit the 1205 squat, and I sat with Louis and kind of brainstormed the plan. And nobody fucking wanted to train with me then. So I literally trained on my own to get to the 1,000-pound squat. And, it was wild times. I'd run the monolith for everybody. And then Jake and Tony Ramos would help, and I would do. Yeah, it was interesting. It was good times there. And I would train. Dave and I would often train Saturdays. We'd do speed bench together. And so I was still getting to work with Dave and train with Dave. And we were battling it out, even though different weight classes, we both wanted, the biggest total and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. Louis still lifted. I think he did 2 or 3 meets when I was there, and I got to handle him and stuff like that. So yeah, cool. It was crazy. It was a crazy time, and it was a lot of fun. The Arnold had I lifted the Arnold, but as in a kind of a squat competition, but the Arnold was kind of done. So yeah. Power Station Pro-Am was the big meets and stuff like that. So I never got to I got to go to those, but I never got to lift to those. But we had a lot of fun and a lot of meets and moved a lot of weights. And to me, it's cool. And Ryan, I'm sure you feel the same way. But like that weekend in that hotel room, you're the most famous guy in the world.
Yeah.
You go to Walmart down the road, nobody gives a shit who you are. But in that hotel room for that weekend, and we were doing things that other people couldn't do, and it was an awesome time.
It was.
I'm glad to see that the sport's coming back. It seems it's weird. I've gone for 10 years and come back, and nothing really happened for 10 years because Raw took off, right? Raw took off. Things I have a lot of respect for that, but it's funny. Louis predicted when the Raw movement started, and people started talking shit about, well, we should go lift Raw and all this. Louis goes, go ahead. You're gonna blow both your kneecaps off. You're gonna tear your pecs. You're gonna, he had all this stuff. And I said, why do you think that? He goes, because I've seen it. He was like, why do you fucking think we started wearing these and shit? And he basically predicted, that these guys would have very short careers Raw, and we have seen most of that come true. And it's the nature of the beast, right?
True.
And nothing. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you're probably not going to live for 20 years like a lot of the multiply guys do, and so.
True.
So now, did you say Chuck Vogelpohl was gone by the time you got there, or was there any time where you overlapped?
No, Chuck had left.
Okay.
And I introduced myself to Chuck because I saw him at meets and stuff like that. And actually, one of the coolest things was when Dave was training over at Lexington. I had done a workout over at Lead FTS with those guys for one of the weekends that we had, and Dave was had a shirt that he was going to let me try out. So I stopped by Lex, and I just got a pit bull puppy, and Chuck came up to the window and took the puppy out of the car, and he loves dogs, absolutely loves dogs, and so he was asking me all these questions, and that was really my first interaction with Chuck. So it was non-lifting, and it was all about the dogs, and I was told the dog was called Hulk, and he was super aggressive, full of testosterone. And Chuck goes, well, as long as he knows he can only wrestle with you, it's not a problem. And it was just great. It was a different side of to me, Chuck was a living legend, and he was a silent assassin, I always called him. And to have that interaction as one of my first interactions, it just showed me the side of Chuck that everybody who knows Chuck knows. And we managed to have some kind of relationship over the years. And actually, in the last year, I would go over to Dog Pound, which was one of the guys was a guy who owned a gym in town. He was training at Westside a little bit, and I'd go over to do accessories and stuff there. And I had someone I was training out of that gym, and a couple of guys were training over there as well. And Saturdays, Chuck would be there, and we would always talk. And when I decided I was going to walk away, and Chuck heard about it, he came up to me and shook my hand, and he said, "It's been a pleasure, watching you over these years, push the numbers." And that was incredible to me. Like, it just shows. I mean, he's an amazing guy, and I think he's on Instagram and stuff now. He doesn't post much, but man, he's very creative. He comes up with all sorts of unique movements and the power pole and stuff like that. And even when he wasn't there, I was still learning from him. And Louis would tell me stories all the time about Chuck and Chuck's training ethic and all like that. And that was kind of like, even though he wasn't there, he set the standard for the gym. And so I think all of us were always trying to, create that kind of legacy that Chuck had. So he had a big impact on my career, even though I didn't get to lift alongside him. But I heard too many horror stories from guys that did train with him, and so I never actually wanted to train with him, to be honest, because everybody said he'll run you into the ground, and I seen it. One of the craziest things on Saturdays, he'd be there when I got there, so he was there obviously before me. His crew would train, and then his crew would start leaving while in the middle of exercises because he never would stop until everybody was done. So he would just be going and going, and like one of the guys would be like, I got to go now. And then, 2 exercises later, another guy would drop out, and he'd be the last man standing. He'd do like one more set, and then he would wrap up. So He truly was the first. He was always the first in, last out. And I got to witness that. And the guys would literally just pack their bags and leave mid-set. It was crazy to see, but it was reinforced the stories I had heard about his training sessions, and seeing it and seeing how hard he trained. It was pretty cool, even though I wasn't lifting alongside him.
Cool.
That is really cool. Okay.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, that is. That's really cool. Love it. Okay. What you talked a little bit about it, and we can kind of get a picture, but What was your relationship with Louis like while you trained there? And what was your relationship with Louis like after you left? Did you stay in touch or what?
Yeah, so I mean, me and Louis were very close when I was there. Like I said, I was always the guy. And then I don't know if just like as he got older, he didn't have the patience that he had early in his career. Um, he would get very frustrated when people didn't know the traditional dynamic work. He was like, yeah, and basically, so I convinced Tony Bellagoni and Matt Smith to go back to the 3-week wave stuff, and you know, and so we would do that. And so Louis really saw me as a guy who wanted to understand everything he knew, apply it. And then because when guests would come in town, like he would say stuff and they wouldn't get it, and I would just, you know, it came the joke that I was kind of his translator, right? And so it was super close. And Louis, he could motivate you. Like he always knew what would motivate you the most. And for me, it was negative feedback. You know, I didn't give a shit about what I did good in the gym. I fucking know what's good. If I did a big number, I knew what was good. But Louis would always pick every lift apart, and that's exactly what I needed. I needed to know when I looked like shit, when
Right.
things were, you know, and he did that, and he berated me, but it was what it motivated me. Whereas with other guys, if he had done that, they would have quit the gym. And you know, some guys he wanted to quit. Some guys it was like, if you're not going to get stronger, I'm going to bully you till you leave, or you're going to figure out how to get stronger. And so he, you know, he would play mental warfare with them. But he had a knack of knowing what would motivate someone. He also knew if someone was going to be any kind of lifter or not. You know, we had a guy come in, he deadlifted 700. I think he weighed like 198. I think that was his weight class. So it was a pretty big deadlift at 198. But like Louis said, he was a mental midget and would never be a full powerlifter. And the guy never did anything else. So, you know, every now and again someone surprised him, but very rarely he knew. So I really got to do that. You know, we'd go, I went to the NFL Combine with him. We worked on the seminars together. So we did all these things together. So I really got to be close to him, which was awesome, you know, and hear the same stories over and over again. But, you know, it was one of those things. So that was really, really cool. And then after I left, you know, we didn't talk for a little bit,
Right.
and I went back and spoke, and then you know, we would talk randomly. I'd go visit. But it'd been probably since I had my kid, I had my daughter 30 seconds of work, but you know, like 4 years ago. And so really for the last 4 years, like I hadn't really been in contact. And you know, I kept saying I was going to go back because, you know, to see Luke Edwards and some of the guys, and I had a trip planned, and you know, two weeks before, that's when he passed. So
Right.
I still went back. I went to the women's pro-am. Man, I was amazed to see how far the women squatting 800, 900 pounds, benching 600. I was blown away by that. You know, and it was just really, really cool to go back to that meet. We had a little tribute for Louis and things like that. So yeah, it was one of those things where you know, timing was a couple weeks off, but you know, like as far as I know, me and Louis had a good relationship. Like we fell out one time because I started talking to John Inza directly versus, you know, Louis is my sponsor, not John Inza.
Right.
Inza, right? So Inza sponsored the gym, and I couldn't get a fucking phenom that worked. They changed that material. Remember when they had the black material, and then all of a sudden they had red and blue?
Yes, sir.
I was blowing out shirt after shirt, so I started, you know, getting pissed. And Louis was getting mad because I was wanting so many shirts. And so I just said, fuck it, I'm just going to talk to John. I knew John from Brent, right? So I figured I'll just reach out to John. So I was telling Lou about it one day in the gym, saying, oh, don't worry about trying to get me another bench shirt. I'm just talking to John right now. You had gave me your measurements on how you did the scoop neck, the 2 inch, like, so I had all the fucking details and everything on how to make the shirt. And so I'm telling Lou, and Lou has a Gatorade bottle in his head, and he throws it up in the fucking gym. You know how tall that gym is. It hits the ceiling, goes everywhere. He's like, why the fuck? And and that was, and we probably about 2 months, he was pretty pissed at me.
Wow.
You know, I thought I was doing him a favor because I thought I was, you know, bugging him, trying to get him to get me shirts. And he was, you know, he didn't want to have to keep going back to John and saying, oh, AJ needs another shirt. But yeah, it really upset him because he felt like I was going behind his back. Like it was like an insult to him that he wasn't, doing what I needed. And he's always had taken care of me. He's always got everything I wanted, and I think he just saw it like that. But that was really the only time we fell out. Yeah, about the same time, he got pissed at me because me and Dave, we fell out, and so we had a little rivalry. We decided to do this meet in somewhere middle of nowhere, Tennessee, and he's like, you guys do not need to fucking compete in the summer. Like you're like all-time record holders. You should only compete once or twice a year.
Right.
Like you need to fucking train. And me and Dave were so mad at each other that we wanted to, I beaten Dave. Like my world record 28.25. Dave broke the 275 world record, but my deadlift got the biggest total in the gym. So even though pound for pound Dave kicked my ass, we didn't fucking care about that. Like to me, and Louis says it, Tony Ramos always says strong is strong, but to me the biggest number is the strong. And I respect everybody, but to me, put up bigger numbers, right? And so I beat Dave that day, and he, since he was a teenager, was chasing having the biggest total at Westside, and I edged him. And for about 6 months, we kind of were rivals. But then we realized how stupid it was because we went and did that meet. Both of us did terrible in the meet, and I still beat him that meet. But we both did so bad that we kind of realized, and we talked to each other. And we started benching again together. So, but yeah, Louis wasn't happy with that I didn't listen to him. But other than that, like we had a great relationship, and like I said, I did the CrossFit seminars while I was there, and then I did those for a couple of years after I'd left. And I got to travel the world. I was in Italy. We had about 100 coaches in this tiny gym. That was cool, and it was just really awesome to be able to do that, and CrossFit went a different direction and started, not doing those seminars and stuff anymore. But yeah, it was great. And I hear what people say about Lou and their different relationships, but in my experience, what it all came down to was Lou, that gym was a laboratory, and your job in that laboratory is to be the strongest lifter. And if you weren't able to do that anymore, that was your time to go. But most people don't, right? So I always look at it like an NFL team. If you get injured and hurt, the coach ain't coming over to your house to hang out with you anymore. He's looking for your replacement.
Right.
Right.
And a lot of people can't handle that. And I understand because, but that was the way that Louis ran the gym. That was how Dave explained it to me. So I was very lucky to not get caught up in that. But, other guys, they felt like Louis was their dad. And, he was a father figure to us. But that was a mistake because, if you weren't performing or he didn't care. And your job was to get stronger and listen to him. And that's all he wanted for you.
Right.
But most people, they wanted to be, happy, or they wanted to have a relationship. And if anything got in the way of lifting, to Louis, that was a negative. Right. And so he had to be that, in my opinion, he had to be that way to create the lifters he created.
That's right.
Anybody else, any other way would never have done that. So, the good and the bad, the ugly, whatever you want to say, at the end of the day, it was what was necessary to make Westside. And I think if you talk to a lot of those lifters who had beef or fell out with him, at the end of the day, they all came around and basically realized, that not they would say Louis was right, but Louis was right in the sense of his situation, right? So,
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wow, it's an interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff I'm learning about Louis I didn't know. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of going in a little different direction here. Prepping for your competitions, what did your diet look like? Were you pretty strict? Were you?
No, so I followed, actually, Dave, I think he might have took it off his website now, but he wrote about like the powerlifting diet. So I struggled getting into the 308 weight class. In fact, I think it was 06 or 08, whenever WPC Worlds were at Lake George, might have been later, I can't remember, but I was still training with Brent, and I remember talking to Dave Tate. I was supposed to compete in the 308 class. I weighed in at 273, and Marius, who was the APF, head judge at the time, who weighed everybody, I was just going to weigh in my clothes. She goes, honey, this is WPC Worlds. You got to strip down to your underwear. So I was like, fuck, right? So, because I just couldn't keep weight on. And so I actually, funny, so I drank a gallon of water because someone told me that would help me gain weight. And then two guys that I knew, Larry, McDonald's, and on the way back from McDonald's, I went to throw up because I had eaten so much food. I suddenly felt sick, knew I was going to throw up, went to put the window down, and the rental was a fucking wind down window. So I'm trying to wind the fucking window. I puked all over the back of the seat of that car.
Oh, no.
And Larry somehow convinced the cleaners there to clean the rental car, and they did a really good job. But anyway, then I had to eat more food. Finally weighed in at like 276. But Paul Childers was when I went back to weigh in, he was weighing in, and he was competing in 308 weight class. And he would have kicked my ass, but I think he bombed out that meet. But he looks at me, he goes, "Oh, AJ, nice to see you. You know who I am." That was surprising. Well, wait, what weight you cleaning? 242? I said, "No, 308." And he's like, "Whoa." And, you met Paul Childers.
Oh yeah,
he's a big ass man.
Big man.
And I'm competing against him. So Dave at that meet, basically, that was the first time Dave Tate and I started talking. But he said, he looked at me and said, "Well, you don't have any food on you." He's like, "That's your first." And he started saying, "You got to eat." And he explained it like the rocks in the jar, where you put the big rocks in first, and then you put the sand in, and so basically he's like, you eat your solids, and then when you can't eat anymore, you drink, you drink your calories, and basically he said, you go until you almost puke, then you wait 15 minutes and you start eating again. And
that's
so,
right.
Like, to get up to 320, I ate, basically I was on a see it, eat it diet,
Yep.
McDonald's, two sandwiches for breakfast, after training, 4x4, go to Red Robin for bottomless fries, all you can eat for dinner. Like it was just eat. After I broke the world record, John Wellborn came to Westside for a little bit to learn from us and Lou. And John was really into the paleo diet and stuff, and he convinced me to kind of clean up my diet. So I went to 4 good meals a day, and then all junk in between. And actually that made a big difference in how I felt. And, it was a big thing. But unfortunately, back then, I mean, I could eat, a pack of Oreos a day and a gallon of milk, and I just couldn't gain weight. And I'd get so frustrated living in Ohio, Midwest area. You go to a restaurant and there'd be women who were bigger than me. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to gain weight. How is this even possible? And then Donnie Thompson told me I was eating too frequently. I needed to crash my metabolism. And he said, look at the sumo wrestlers. They only eat once. They eat it one time a day, but they eat all their calories and then go to sleep.
Right.
So I tried that for a little bit as well. But yeah, I just really had to eat a crap load, which is complete opposite now, which pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem anymore.
We would have been good roommates. I mean, if that eating schedule was it was same thing I was doing when I was at 350 to maintain that. It was like 10 to 15,000 calories a day, man. I was eating every hour and a half. So
yeah.
McDonald's, Wendy's, all of it.
I remember when the Powerlifting Unlimited movie came out, Scott Mendelson was in it, and he was talking about eating like 15,000 calories a day.
Yep.
And everybody thought he was bullshitting. And I'm like, he ain't fucking bullshitting.
No.
Trust me. Like this is the part of the sport. This is what we're really
That's
abusing.
right.
It's like, this is really what's going on, is like we're eating more food than any other human can even think about. Like,
it's true. Yeah, he taught me a lot about gaining weight and gave me a lot of ideas as far as high calorie shakes, and he was a big influence to me on how big I got. And yeah, that was fun. Putting that food away was fun, man. I don't think I could do it at this age, but back then,
Yeah, Metrics 1000 weight gainer. You put ice cream in it. Heavy whipping cream.
Heavy cream. I was doing Champion Nutrition 1875 calorie shakes, and I was doing 4 of those a day with 2% milk, and it was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Makes me smile, man, because I was an eating machine, man, and it sounds like you were too, man.
Yeah.
Things we did to be strong and big.
You have to.
That's right.
Like it's funny because you don't realize how big you are muscle wise, right? And how much calories it takes just to fuel the muscle. And
that's right.
And that's why I think people struggle with it, because it's different when you're fat 330, 350. You don't even look the same, and you don't have the muscle, so you're not burning calories. You could be that big and only eating 3,000 calories a day. But if you got all that muscle on you, you got to eat so much more. And
hell yeah.
So it's just part of the game.
Definitely. Okay. Have you suffered from any injuries in your powerlifting career, and how did you recover from those injuries?
I had a hamstring tear early in the career, and just kind of rehabbed that. Didn't it was not a full tear, partial tear, and it took about 8-10 weeks before I could deadlift on it again. But other than that, I didn't get injured, and I think that
Awesome.
was a huge, for close to, I think, 8 years, from that injury to when I broke the world record, no injuries, and a lot of that was because I just listened to my body, and of course with all the specialty bars, you train around anything. So that was, shoulders are beat up, use the safety squat bar and things like that, and I started learning, how much squatting took out of my shoulders, and then like how to cycle my bench press training to avoid, I would meticulously look at what's my 3-week wave when I'm going to put the shirt on. I wouldn't want to put my shirt on the 3rd week, right? So all my training evolved around trying to stay injury free. And then Louis had a lot of little tips and stuff, and the bamboo bar really helped, that kind of stuff. So very, very lucky. And then, since powerlifting, I tore my pec, tore my hamstring again.
Oh,
so yeah. So like when I was doing the heavyweights, I was fine, but since then, so.
That's kind of crazy.
How bad was that pec tear, AJ?
I got a pretty good hole in it. So
okay.
It wasn't a Scott Mendelson pec tear, but
okay.
I didn't have to get it surgically reattached.
Okay.
But yeah, it left a pretty good hole. I guess quite a few layers were gone.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. Yeah, myself. So. All right, Ashley, what do you got over there?
Okay, on to the next question here. So I know you talked a little bit about this already, but when you got up to your heaviest weight, did you ever use a CPAP?
That would be no.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
I thought you said you never did. You had sleep apnea, but you didn't ever get a CPAP. Is that correct?
Yeah. I didn't even know I had sleep apnea. All I knew was I snored really, really bad, and when I'd fly, I'd pass out. It was the best thing ever. And then the air stewardess would wake me up because I was snoring so loud. It was bugging the other people on the plane. So I knew I was a really bad snorer. But other than that, I didn't know what sleep apnea was. I didn't talk to anybody about it.
Right.
It was just one of those things. It was like, I can't sleep. That was just what I thought.
Yeah, AJ, I didn't know I had it either until I was complaining to a 70-year-old powerlifter. His name was Skip Sandberg, and I was at a Brent Mikesell meet in Spokane. I believe this was April 2007, and I was complaining to Skip, I'm tired, I'm winded, and he was asking me, do you dream when you sleep? I go, I dreamt 6 months ago, and he goes asking me all these symptoms, and I'm like, and he goes, you got sleep apnea. I go, what's that? So I go home and Google it, and he said I need to get a CPAP machine. I didn't know what the hell that was. And I went to my doctor, and thank God he was a cool doctor. And he goes, I said, I need a CPAP machine. He goes, well, you got to do a sleep study. That's $2,000 if you don't have insurance. I go, I just need a prescription that says CPAP on it. So he got out of his pocket a prescription pad and wrote CPAP machine and handed it to me. And I faxed it to a company, I won't name on here, but they sent me a CPAP machine, and it was an auto CPAP, and the rest is history, man. Yeah.
I got a machine now, and I don't snore and I sleep.
There you go.
That's why it's a wonder machine for sure.
It really is. I mean, I remember when I wasn't getting sleep, I was irritable, I was edgy, and I just thought that was the testosterone and whatnot. But it was no sleep, dude. It was fucking horrible. It was a living nightmare having, and at 300, I was pushing the limits at like 315, and man, I was like waking up in the middle of the night, running outside trying to get air because I felt like I was underwater, drowning. It was horrible, AJ. Just
I know exactly that feeling.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, Ashley, what you got?
So outside of the gym, what do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I'm just really just a dad.
Yeah.
That's basically take up most of my time now, and work.
Yep.
That's about it. So we just we're getting one of those vans.
Oh yeah.
Travel a little bit more, and we want to come up to Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and those fun areas, and maybe we'll see you on the road. But honestly, I'm a very simple person, and I don't know where I read it, but like someone said he was like an amazing dad, and they asked him why, and he said because he didn't have a lot of hobbies, so everything he did was with his family.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to do. I just spend a lot of time with the family, and getting back in the lifting now, which is really awesome. But I've been lifting, but I refuse to squat, bench, and deadlift for the last probably 6 years.
Yeah.
So now I'm finally getting back into the benching, and probably just do bench only. I don't know if I'll ever squat the way I did, but
Right.
yeah. So that's about it, really. Very simple.
Yeah, family's most important, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you thinking about doing like a bench only competition? Is that what you're
Yeah, so I
planning?
I put it out there, reached out to Ryan and Jimmy Club and a bunch of guys who are putting up crazy numbers in these band shirts. And it's exciting to me to see, I think BJ, I've seen some of his training lifts,
Yeah.
and I know he's been out of the sport for a long time. And
Yep.
so like, I saw that and I was like, man, I actually probably could come back and do something. And funny enough, my bench seems to be the one lift that hasn't gone down so much. And so I still have really good technique, and I think I could be back over 500 raw in the next couple months. So like get that and then that top end strength back. So I give myself about 12 months, to something good. But I'll probably do a meet or two, and in between to see where I am and see if I can put up, get back into 7s, 8s, 9s, and just go for a run like that. But just got some F8 stuff and been texting with Rob to try to get some stuff dialed in. Matt Smith gave me one of their band shirts, so I got that sitting there, but too scared to put it on right now. Like, so got to try to build up a little training crew and get that strength back. But really, it's just it's to have that drive again. I haven't had any drive forever, and it just is exciting again, and it's just fun to see, and I'm lucky that I can reach out to guys who are putting up the world record numbers, and and actually Scott's only I think 2 hours from me, so once I start to get something decent again, I might jump in with his bench crew just to be able to go handle the heavy weights and be around other guys who are doing it, because I'm not really sure if there's anyone here in San Diego that is much of an equipped lifter. So
yeah, BJ Dirks really excelled in a short amount of time. He took a 2-year hiatus, and he had a child himself, and I said, BJ, you got to come back. These band shirts, you can do 1,000 pounds. And yeah, he's been back with us for 8 months now or something. And he's working up to 1,005 off of one board recently. So he's doing quite well. So
yeah, it's really cool. It's funny because like I don't know if it's our generation, but we didn't grow up with the internet. So like, nope. I keep looking for videos, and like hardly anybody posts videos of like anybody that I want to watch. Right.
Right.
So it's like, I'm like, man, I wish people post their training and stuff, but I never really did either. So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So next question here. What is your favorite moment in your powerlifting career? What stands out the most?
I mean, I honestly, it's the day I broke the world record for the first time, because I jumped from, I was 26 something total to the 28-25.
Oh, wow.
And the world record, because the world record had jumped and was at 27.99. I think Jonas Ratnan had it, or it might have been Yarnbash. I can't remember who had it at the time. But anyway, I had felt like I could break that world record for a year and a half, and just my numbers on the platform weren't coming close to things that I'd done in training. It wasn't making any sense to me. And Louis was just saying you got to have patience and stuff like that. And so that meet was the first meet that everything came together. I think I went 9 for 9 that meet, perfect meet. And it was just like I finally had done it,
Right.
I like proved to myself that like you're not fucking batshit crazy. And because I'd been telling people since I was like 17, 18 that I remember when I first walked in with, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be a world record holder like you, and luckily I had guys like him, guys like you, when I said stuff like that to, who didn't go, you're fucking crazy. Just like, all right, well, this is what you're going to have to do. But like most people I said that to just thought I was nuts, so to finally do that, to prove, Louis was there to put my name on that board at Westside, like that was probably the greatest moment. And honestly, like the second and third time I broke the total really it didn't have any kind of the same effect.
That first time, I understand. I know the feeling, AJ.
See that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what is your least favorite or worst moment in your powerlifting career?
I don't know if I've bombed out of a meet. I bombed out of the Arnold. That was probably my least favorite. The main stage of the Arnold squat challenge. I think Al Meehan kicked my ass at that meet. But I tried 1,000-pound squat 3 times. They red lighted me every single time.
Oh.
And there was, I think there was probably 500-600 people sitting there watching.
Oh,
and,
wow.
So it's the most people I've ever lifted. I had the Arnold Classic, and here I go bomb out in a squat only challenge. Like, so, yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
Right.
And it's probably I felt the worst after that meet for sure.
That squat only challenge, was there gear restrictions, or could you wear canvas and briefs and everything?
No. It was equipped challenge.
Okay.
So I had the Inza Predators, and I don't remember what the squat suit was made out of the same material as the Predators.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't in the canvas time.
At the time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. When you first started out, what lifters did you look up to?
Yeah, like I said, being in the area, like my first meet I went to was WABDL meet. I think there in the Tri-Cities. And
wow.
Ryan, you didn't lift. I think it was in a casino. I think Paul Rosh or maybe you hosted the meet. It was a WBDL meet. I think it was at a casino or a nightclub or a bar or something. I don't remember.
What year, AJ?
Oh, it would have been probably 05, 04, 05.
04, 05. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in like, but anyway, like
Yeah.
that was the first meet, and then WABDL Worlds, Ryan was lifting there, so I looked up to Ryan. That's when I met Brent. So like really, those were the guys I looked up to right away. And then the Westside guys, I got those DVDs, and actually Matt Smith, in the squat DVD, I talk about if Luke Edwards listens to this, he's gonna kill me because I always tell the same story. But there's a moment in that DVD where I don't know what happens, but the music cuts, and Matt like inhales the entire fucking gym. It's like he's setting up to squat. Somehow the music, and you just hear Matt Smith going, like breathing in to squat. And that was like the coolest fucking thing I'd ever seen in my life. So yeah, and then I went to the APF, Detroit APF, which was that was a really fucking cool meet. Ryan was there. We were all sat eating. Scott Mendelson came in, and
yeah, I remember
like
that.
all the Westside guys were there. Jeff Lewis was there.
Jeff Lewis,
that was probably the best nationals that I'd ever been to. Simultaneously, that was one of my worst meets too. But I was only 19 or 20 at the time, so my lifts weren't that great. But I squatted my first 800. I think I was at the 275. Yeah, 275. Squatted my first 800. Becca Swanson squatted 852 that fucking meet, weighing probably 230, 240. 240. And I told Brent, I said, Brent, I'm never gonna lose to a woman again. Tell me what I got to do, And he laughed, but I never got out squatted by a woman again. But Becca was something else. Nothing to take nothing away from her. But that meet, like. I was so pumped up for my first 800, and then I watched her go after me and out. And you humble yourself pretty quick after that moment, and it kind of slapped some cockiness out of me. But that meet, like every big Gary Frank was, every big lifter was there. It was one of the best meets ever.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What assistance exercises gave you the most carryover in each of your 3 main lifts? Squat, bench, deadlift.
Yeah, great question. So like I said, Brent, like we did a lot of band squats and stuff like that. But then for accessories, we did a lot of he did a lot of banded good mornings and real heavy reverse hypers. And I remember at the Golds there in Spokane, he had his reverse hyper machine in like this back closet, and they had like 600 pounds on there. And the first time I trained, we go in the closet to reverse hypers, and they're like, him and Agnes is like, we're not taking any weight off. So they just basically swung the weight to get started. And I had, probably no technique and stuff, but that was that. So like the reverse hyper, and then good morning stuff, with mostly accessory good morning, not heavy good morning, like band good mornings. And then when I went to Westside, we had a back attack machine, which I got to get one of those machines. It's basically a machine for a good morning. It's absolutely great.
Really?
And so that was huge. And then, you know, we always did glute ham raises, and like I was so good at those. And then Louis created that inverse curl machine, which essentially is the glute ham, but the other directions moving. So like those were really the staple that made my lifts go up in the squat and deadlift. For bench pressing, you know, I was heavy in boards and all that stuff before I went to Westside. But when I went to Westside, Tony B, like we were doing extensions, and we call them Kennelly presses, but
Nice.
you know, they come down. Was it Jim Williams, the original? Anyway, come down, roll back. You call them rolling tricep extensions, but we just call them Kennelly presses.
Oh, awesome!
You know?
I didn't know that.
And so that we're doing these, you know, he's cranking it, like, you know, he grabs the 120s and does 20 reps first set. I don't think I'm not going to be able to do that. So I grab the 80s, and I barely can get 20. and I just realized pretty quickly, because, you know, Tony was putting up over 800 in the bench at the time. I was at 730, 735. I just realized that was my weakness.
Yep.
And hardly anybody believes me than tell them that really the only difference in my training for the bench press when I went to Westside was the addition of tricep extension. Everybody thinks there's something else I must have learned there, but really it wasn't. I did all that stuff before. I did boards, I did bands, I did all of that shit. What really made the difference was all the heavy extensions. And, you know, Louis would always talk about how, like, the old Westside guys, right? Like, they didn't put their gear on much, so they were all really fucking strong raw. And because we trained for the shirt, so we, you know, if we weren't in the shirt, we were doing boards, we were doing reverse bands, you know, putting the slingshot, stuff like that. Like, we were doing a lot to build top end, you know. Like, a lot of our raw strength, you know, my bench 585, and, you know, like Panora did about the same, but there wasn't really many of us benching over 600 raw. Now, we didn't train for it, but, like, you know, Louis always said that was a big weakness of ours, that we were, you know, I was doing, I think I did like off a 3-board, like a 900 raw 3-board.
Wow.
Whoa.
Raw?
But
Jesus.
yeah, but like,
Jesus.
you know, full range raw, you know, 585. And I remember him saying how weak we had gotten in the bottom end. And so he started wanting us to do like extra stuff with the cambered bar and stuff like that to really build up the pecs and the shoulders, and, you know, all the stuff that really make a difference now with these band shirts. But it was just super interesting because, like, you know, we really did try to the carryover with the equipment, but in doing so, we created these weaknesses that were never there before. And you know, and that was something that he always said, like, you shouldn't train in your gear as much as you guys do. Like, he really felt like we were doing that. But, you know, we were putting up bigger numbers, so, like, we just kept doing what we were doing, you know?
Right. Makes sense. Okay. What is your favorite, most fun meet that you've ever done?
I don't know. It's funny when I look back. Like, I couldn't say a meet's fun. You know, I think when I was young, you know, like, those are the meets that. But, you know, I think after I broke the world record, every meet after that was a lot funner, right? Because I only had myself to beat, and so, you know, interesting enough, I never did my biggest lifts all in one meet, which was something that Louis was always pissed about. But yeah, I after I broke the world record, I think those, you know, 5 or 6 meets I did after that, that's where I started to have a lot more fun, you know, because the pressure was off. I wasn't chasing, you know, and it was just me against me. And it was also the hardest to train for because you got no one to chase. So up until that point, you know, and I was lucky because I always said, you know, I wasn't the strongest in the squat. You know, Donnie Thompson was. I wasn't the strongest in the bench. Ryan was. You know, you had 1075. I wasn't the strongest in the deadlift. Like, so I was never the strongest in the individual lifts. I was just the person who could do the most in all three together. So I was always able to, even though I was number one, I wasn't number one. So I had examples of people who were better and stronger. And, you know, this may sound silly, but I'd look at Donnie and I'd look at his leverages and I'd say, okay, that's how you squat big. I'd look at Ryan and say, look at his leverage. That's how you bench big. You know, you look at the big deadlifters and go, that's how they deadlift big. I don't have Andy Bolton leverages. How do I adjust? And, you know, I went, something that I did that I don't know how many lifters would do that, but I trained with every single person who was a world record holder at some point. So, like that. You know, I not only sought out their knowledge, I would go, you know, when I went to England, I went and trained at Andy's place with him, because I wanted to see how do they actually train, because videos don't do justice. When people watch the videos, and you know, I think in your road to the Arnold, which, you know, wish that just put it out, it's the best fucking thing ever.
Thank you.
I don't even know if there's a video that's been as good since, but you know, maybe we should get on to make like the road to the, you know, comeback or whatever.
Yeah.
It can be done. It can be done.
Number, like when you did 4 or 5 before, like I don't think people realize like the speed you did those first reps. Like the first 20, like it was like an empty bar, but like you can't, unless you see that stuff in person, you can't experience it. And
Right.
and that to me, like that's one thing I don't think a lot of lifters do, and I think they should. Like the internet's become like you know, they don't even go to meets anymore, like outside of, like, it's like, what's the closest meet to them? Because there's no need anymore. You can get all of the praise and the hoo-ha, you know, you do a big gym lift, everybody
That's
thinks
right.
you're the fucking man. But I think it really hurts them because they don't get to see, you know, like when I met Jimmy at Laura's meet, and we didn't get much time, and just shook his hand, but that guy is fucking huge.
Yes,
like,
he is.
Jimmy is fucking huge. He doesn't look like that on his videos.
No.
Like, you have no idea how big his back is, his forearm. You like, when you meet, you go, oh,
right.
Jesus, no wonder why you look at this guy.
This guy's
like,
built a bench.
Yeah, like next to Dave Hoff, who's the greatest powerlifter right now, you know, there is. Dave's like is size of Jimmy. So like these are the things you don't, unless you see these people in person, you have no fucking clue. And you know, it's like when I met Gary Frank and he shakes your hand and it's like his hand's double the size of mine, you know. Yep. It's like okay, like, you know, you start to realize things you didn't realize, and you start to learn like who looks like me, who has my body type, like what do they do and how do I get stronger. And those are the things I think make lifters great, you know, and you know, staying injury free over time.
That's right.
It's the, you know, the two things that seem to separate people. And you know, is super humble, super intelligent, really thinks about things, always wanting to learn from everybody else, even if there's rivalries there. Like, you know, you mentioned earlier talking to Scott, like you guys had some of the biggest rivalries, but you still talk to each other.
That's
I know you're friends with Tiny Meeker and huge rivalries there, but it was, you still knew that
that's right.
You had something to learn from them and they could learn something from you. So
let's see here. Okay, this is kind of a fun one. What is something about you that would surprise everyone?
Probably the biggest thing is like after bodybuilding, a couple of years off, not really doing much. I got into BMX again.
Whoa.
And like cool. Riding skate parks. I went to Woodward, and you know, cool. I tried to stay under the radar, and then fucking Westside versus the World came out on Netflix. I started getting texts from all these San Diego has the most pro BMX riders in the world. Tons of guys who are in the X Games and stuff like that. And so I went from nobody knew who the fuck I was to everybody realizing why this big guy is like, you know, I do all sorts of tricks, 360s, and
really,
I do dirt jumps, all that stuff. So we got quite a lot of different parks here. I haven't done it for a little bit, you know, with the family and stuff, but I got 2 BMX bikes, you know, extreme BMX. So most people have. Yeah, like I look weird, but then I go and ride. I actually tried, because I thought I'm grown up now. I probably should go into there's these new kind of downhill trick bikes that they make, but it's a between a mountain bike and a BMX really. And so I got one of those. I couldn't figure out how to use the damn thing, so I went back to the little kiddie bike. But it's a lot of fun, and I got a ramp out front, and awesome. Like keep, you know, hopefully my kids will get into it and stuff like that.
Hell yeah!
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool.
That is surprising.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. That's really cool.
I actually did it when I was a kid, and because I was better at basketball, so he felt like that was the better path. In retrospect, I should have kept BMX, and I probably would have gone to the X Games. But you know, I learned pretty quick I wasn't going anywhere in basketball when I came over here and realized that you can't teach someone to be tall, right? Like you're either born 6'3", 6'4", or
that's
you're
right.
not. So
that's right.
Let's see here. Okay, this one's kind of fun too. I know we've talked a little bit about Westside, but what is one or a couple of your favorite Westside stories?
Time I ever went into Westside was a Sunday to bench, and Lou and he was doing banded bamboo bar, incline bamboo bar, in the power rack. And he goes, just jump in with me. He takes the weight out and he just reps out 20 reps. And I want to impress Lou. So I take that, bamboo bar out. It's got the kettlebells on, and it's shaking, but it doesn't feel heavy. So I just figure I'll go fast. So I lower it and I push up as fast as I could. The bamboo bar hits the rack, comes down, slaps me in the dick, hits me in the face, hits me in the face. Louis takes the bar, puts it up, and he looks at me, he goes, son, you got a lot to learn. that was like one of the best
That's
stories.
A good one. That's hilarious.
The battles that I saw in there were crazy. Greg versus Luke. That was Luke was always chasing Greg. The day he beat him in the deadlift was, Greg. I think this is why Greg left, but Greg's mindset at the time, like he was getting a day that, like, probably, added to his frustration, but. Luke beat him in the death, and then Greg, tried, missed, put on briefs, missed, put on a suit, missed, grab straps, missed. Like, he tried everything to try to beat Luke. But those are the kind of battles. That's just one, but those things happen every fucking week in there. What, you'd show up pissed off, and guys, oh, what's wrong with you? It's like, fuck, it doesn't matter what's wrong with you, just fucking lift. So like it was like that was just some of the coolest shit, and then. Honestly, like when the CrossFit community got involved, because we got to share.
That's true.
To a whole bigger audience. That was a really like they would come and they would watch. When I was at Westside, for me was a really cool time because we were just sharing what we were doing. A lot of people didn't like it because they didn't like CrossFit. Louis didn't even understand CrossFit. These guys would say, hey, can we work out? Louis said absolutely, and they would do a squat, and then they'd go out and run around the building. Louis, what the fuck are you doing? Like. You're supposed to be recovering, and so anyway, that was fun. But yeah, and then worst story. I mean, the worst Westside story is when I had the back squat Louis, and then he basically told me the gym was going to shut down. He was done and going to shut the whole gym down because he was luckily by the time benches finished the meet, but by benches and the other guys were lifting, he was back to being Louis. But
wow.
Yeah, that was a scary moment sitting there. He was like, what happened? And I told him he passed out, and he was so fucking depressed about bombing out. And he just looked at me and he goes, oh, I'm done. He goes, I'm done. And I'm like, okay. Like, and he's like, Westside's done. It's done. I'm done. And I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
But that was like, well, I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to fucking say to him. I was like, all right, like, well, I'll leave you be, man.
Right, right.
So, cool. But luckily, it's just a lapse of oppression. But I mean, but obviously, for me, there wasn't that many bad stories. It was a great fucking time in my life for me. So
yeah, it sounds like it. Those were good stories. I like the first, the kettlebell story is pretty funny.
Yeah.
See her. Who do you think will be the future of the sport?
I don't know, because now that the band benches, the bench shirts have come in, and kind of like people the numbers are insane. 1,000-pound squat. When the canvas, Brent broke his world record in a canvas suit.
Right.
And that was like 2002.
Yep.
Something like that. And that was what I broke my world record in. So those canvas suits didn't really fucking change that much, but the numbers went up, right? Same with the bench press shirts. The phenoms made a difference, but what Ryan benched in was the same fucking shirt that I benched in.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Numbers went up. But with Raw pulled so many lifters away, right? So those numbers just stay stagnant. The band shirts, like, all of a sudden people are putting up crazy numbers, And if you look at it, what Jimmy's doing is probably what Ryan would have done, Scott would have, like the 1,300, like those are the numbers that the top guys should be fucking doing. Yeah. And there's only one guy that's in that realm right now, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you got all these other guys, 1,000-pound benches becoming like that 1,000-pound squat did. When I got into lifting, it was 1141 that Brent had the record at. The 1,000-pound was no longer the threshold. Bench is going to be like that. 1,000-pound is going to be, the 161 record or whatever weight class we have, right? So but I think what that does is breed life into the sport.
That's
because
right.
so many people go, well, I want to bench 1,000, myself included, right? Like that's the goal. Like, oh, I want to come back and bench 1,000. And it's just to feel that way, like, you know, even though it's different, and like I'm under no pretenses that like I'm probably going to be weaker if I bench 1,000 again. I'll probably be weaker than when I bench 900, right? but like it's exciting, and that's what it does. And so you know, I see what's his name, Curry, I think his last name's Jonathan Curry. He owns a gym out in Texas, but he's working with Scott Mendelson on a squat suit. So I don't know if they're taking the concept of the band shirt and trying to create a squat suit.
Well, that'd be interesting.
But that's kind of like that's what I would like to see. You know,
Yeah,
just so we start to see some crazy ass totals and stuff. And I think what you're going to see with the raw lifting is you're going to see raw lifting is going to stay, because when you go to a meet, 9 out of 10 of those people aren't powerlifters.
Right.
They're just people who like to work out and want to do a meet, right?
Yeah.
Like powerlifting is a very loose word, and you know, they don't do, you know, they do like 1 meet a year or something like that. But there is other lifters who are very, very serious, and I think what they found is that injuries creep in, and they don't want to quit lifting. And so I think they're going to stop doing what the reason guys got into gear was they want, my knees hurt, I'm going to wear knee wraps, right? So if I'm wearing knee sleeves, and you've seen knee sleeves, they went from just Tommy Kono type knee sleeves to so freaking tight that 3 people have to pull them up on your knees. You can't tell me that's any better than a knee wrap, right? Like, so I think what you see is just guys realize, like, okay, it number one, it stops me getting hurt, but number two, if it's going to help me and it helps me progress, and that's really what keeps you excited, right? Is that progress. So I don't know who's going to come through. There's on the women's side, there's tons of fucking lifters right now, Leah and you know, all these different girls, like, you know, that they're already the future. On the men's side, we've only seen it in the bench. We don't really see much. Like, nobody stepped up to the plate with Dave.
Nope.
You know, obviously Brian Carroll did the 1,300 squat, but Brian was lifting when I was lifting. So there's no new blood there. So hopefully we see some of that stuff. There's some great lifters at Westside, but they're very young. And obviously Westside's transitioning where it's not really going to be, those guys are going to be able to train there, but it's not a powerlifting gym. You know, the moving forward, it's going to be more of an athletic training center, an education center. But so I don't know where those lifters will end up, if they'll stay there or if they'll form their own crews, you know. But I think going back to Ohio to that meet, like, I think the sport is in a great place. I think there's more lifters now than ever, and I just think we're going to see more raw lifters transition into the gear just to try it, right? Because you know, if you can do 500 raw a bench, cool, but are you going to get to 6 or 7? Probably not. But you know, so if you've already peaked, what's next? Well, you put on a shirt, all of a sudden you're playing with 700, 800.
Exactly.
It's a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
Big weights are fun to me. Like, some people think that's crazy, but to me it's fun, you know, like nothing worse than only being at a squat. When I was injured for a little bit, my knee, I can only squat like 2 plates, and it's just humiliating. You know, but that's basically all I could do without my knee caving in.
Right.
You know, so I don't mind putting on the elbow wraps and the, you know, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you know, good. And it helps longevity in the sport, you know, like it's cool to see. So we'll see where the sport goes. The money's coming back in. People are putting on big meets again. And, you know, and obviously Pharrell and all these guys, they're making money, but they're putting money back into the sport.
Agreed.
And that's been missing for a period of time too. So hopefully with what you know, they're doing with the WPO and things like that, that's gonna, you know, being on ESPN, all that fun stuff. So it's good. Like, I think the sport's in a good place. So it's exciting to see where it goes.
And I think Tiny Meeker's meet this weekend will be aired on ESPN too. Is what he told me. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's gonna be a big meet. Are you going out to? I think you are.
I'm not. No. Yeah. I really want to go out there and be a spectator, but it's really hard, AJ, to go out there and see something I love to do. And I'm actually sidelined right now because I got a C6 vertebrae that's impinging a nerve, and it's causing my right arm to be like about 40% power. So I'm gonna be honest with you right now. My 1 rep max on the bench is 375, and this arm just basically gives out after that. So I'm going through some hard times right now. I'm gonna do a cortisone shot here soon, and try to get this thing fixed so I can get back in the sport, man. I've been sidelined. I've just been doing a lot of coaching right now. Just it sucks, but you know, just getting old and things catching up with me, you know.
You did have 1,000 pounds on the bar the other night.
I did have 1,000 pounds on the bar the other night. I do my best, but there's a lot of weakness and instability with this arm, and It's tough, man.
The nerve stuff's weird, you know.
It is weird. I mean,
it works and then shuts, and then next time it shuts everything down.
A little nerve is just being pinched right now, and it's the one thing I love to do in life. Bench press has been taken away from me, man, and I'm optimistic. You know, I really want to avoid surgery, so I'm trying to do whatever injection it takes to hopefully remedy the situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the lineup there. It looks phenomenal, and you know, I think they're gonna live stream it as well. So, like, I'm excited to see what comes out of it. But I know Rita in the fall for the benches as well. Like, so there's a lot of good stuff, and it's just really cool to see again because,
absolutely,
you know, like I haven't not paid attention, but there's really been, other than when Dave lifts, there's really not been a lot of stuff in a long time in the sport, and so it seems like all of a sudden it's all come together in the last couple of years, and it's just it's like it's moving again, you know, and it's to me it's
it's
cool,
exciting,
like,
and there's a lot of strong human beings. I mean,
it's crazy.
We got Julius Maddox approaching an 800-pound raw bench, man. I remember when I did 800 in the shirt, it was unbelievable history, and now you know we're going to see a man bench 800 raw. So it's crazy.
But Vlad did that 1200 squat row, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's like it's insane. I think it was that, but yeah, I mean, it goes to show it's just crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. If you had the opportunity to go back and do it all over again, would you change anything? And if so, what would it be?
See, that's always a tough question because it's like you're exactly who you needed to be, right? But I do think about things back in the diet and like actually if I worked with doctors, right, and had regular blood work done, like hormone, like what levels were what, like where my cholesterol was, blood, all these different things,
right?
Like I do wonder if that would have made a difference, right? And I do think that when you look at sport, you know, you look at the Olympics athletes and stuff like that, the reason those numbers get pushed forward still is because they do advance those types of things, right? Their training becomes methodical, becomes much more calculated. You know, what Louis always says, you got to train optimal. It wasn't about training maximal all the time. That was the problem that most people had. It was about, and that was something I saw in the gym a lot too. Like the best guys would always be training optimally, and everybody who was chasing them would be training maximally because they want to fucking keep up, right? And that was the thing with what Louis always talked about, is that doesn't make any sense. The reason he has percentages is so that, I mean, you two could squat together in the squat rack, right? You got 25% band tension on, you know, 50% weight. You just train in the same place. But you know, with testosterone from you want to beat each other. So those that train optimally would, you know, move up. The other people would struggle. And I look back, that's what I would like to change. I would just like to have more care, self-care on, you know, massage and deep tissue work. And I remember when I was bodybuilding, you know, I was obsessed about it too. And luckily a bunch of pro IFBB bodybuilders I was training out of, and guys like Jay Cutler would come and stuff like that. And
wow.
This guy Derek Farnsworth, he's a 212 bodybuilder pro. He's older now. I don't know if he still competes, but he was a art therapist, and he would, you know, I saw a video of him working on Jay Cutler, and it was like, I remember seeing him put his thumb into like his bicep, and it just like basically just vanished like it's a balloon, right? And I was like,
oh gosh,
touch my arm, and I'm like, rock. And I was like, my tissue quality sucks, right? I got these from the squats, like bands of scar tissue in my legs that I don't know if it's like done that calcification where it's never going to go away, but like I just like all these, and I think to myself, man, all these little things, like what would have the difference been now? Like the recovery, the food, you know, like and so I would have liked to have, you know, knowing what I know now, I would have liked to have more care for that stuff, you know, and really thought about that. And I thought I was cutting edge because I did some foam roll shit. Like, you know, I'd be rolling around on a foam roll, and Louis would be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, you know. So, but yeah, like it's just one of those things where you can look back and go, "Man, maybe if I had eaten better, maybe if I had gone to a doctor, maybe if I had that." Like I wouldn't have got to that point where basically I had mental breakdown. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I'm gonna die. I gotta let's get out of this. So, but like, could I have avoided that? What would have that looked like? How much stronger could I have been? You know, because I really, you know, I did, you know, there's multiple ways to get strong, and I just did it all, right? So
Right.
I look back and go, well, if I was willing to do whatever it took, and I, you know, I want to maximize the gear, push my weight up as big as I can, you know, like all these different things, like what if I had all those other things at my fingertips and treated it like a pro athlete would treat it? But you know, I'll hopefully that stuff will allow me to get back into the sport,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like training smarter now, be doing those things. Like, you know, hopefully I'll be able to get back, you know, close to what I did, you know, in the bench raw, and then you know, that will carry over to the shirt. But we'll see. First goal I said is just get to that 1,000-pound bench, and you know, I want to do it before I'm 40. I got 3 years to do it, and everybody thinks I can do it quicker than that.
You
know,
can,
but,
AJ. You can.
We'll see how it goes. And it's just fun to me that Ryan, you're still lifting, and you got your crew, and you know, I've seen your videos too, Ashley. But like, it's cool that like everybody that like was there when I was there is mostly still around, and everybody's excited, and everybody's training again. And you know, it's cool to be able to bounce ideas. You know, text Dave, and he,
Absolutely.
you know, he basically, I was asking like, how do you train now? And he's like, basically the same as we trained before. Like, you know, I'm like, you know, like that's good to hear. You know, conjugates still works.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's one of the things, you know, if I could go back, you know, I really admire you, AJ, because I remember when you said you were going to Westside, and when you went out there and what you did in a short amount of time, there was countless times that I sat here and I looked in the mirror and I said, I can do 1,000. I can do this. I said, you know, Louis invited me out there, I believe in 2001, to come out to Ohio and lift there. He invited me to the gym, and I said, well, you know, I was hanging drywall at the time in Florida, and I said, are there jobs out there? I mean, that was a fork in the road I wish I could have took, because I know if I would have went out there, I would been way over in the 1100s if I trained at Westside. And that's one of the things I woulda, coulda, shoulda, wish I could have done, man, is been out there with that type of lifting environment and intensity and technical skills. And I just think I could have gone a lot farther than out here by myself, you know, with my crew. So yeah.
Well, you did pretty good. So.
I did pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, you did pretty good. You set the standard for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, like you had your small hiatus, and then
Yeah.
I was like, when Ryan lifted last, and I didn't realize you came back and you did over 900 again in competition. So like that was exciting for me too, because one of the things when I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna train, like, you know, like what are the ages of people who have done big numbers? So I go over to, we got open powerlifting now where we can stalk everybody. Never had that where we had to wait for fucking Powerlifting USA once a year to come out with the rankings.
That's right.
And if you broke a record in between, nobody fucking knew about it. But you know, so I was looking on that, and I was seeing like, you know, people older than me hitting bigger numbers. I saw that you had made your comeback. I saw that Jimmy took 3 years off. And so it was encouraging to see that, and to be like, oh, okay, like just because you take some time off doesn't mean you can't come back and hit big numbers again. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think that you know, because of things that are a little different now. Like I never saw your training online. I never like, you know, there's that connection and community now too. So if anything, like it's even better now because we, you know, this meet this weekend, you know, we get to watch it. When could you ever get to see a meet before? You'd get someone shooting on a flip phone or whatever video from a meet, and then the trolls would just be going nuts. And it's like, you can't even fucking see anything. You know, one person would take a video from the ground, everybody would say you're high. Someone else would be stood up, and everyone would be like, oh, you buried that squat. You know, it was like, oh, it wasn't locked out. Oh, he's falling off the bench. And I remember, I think you did 1070. And it was like the internet went nuts saying like it was a bad lift, and then like 2 months, not long after, you went and smoked 1075 like it was a fucking empty bar, and it was, everybody's like, oh, okay, well maybe you did fucking.
Yeah, that's the way it goes when you're on top, AJ. You know, you get your fans, you get your haters, all in one. No?
Yeah.
Okay, just a couple more. What did you do after you retired from powerlifting? Is it true that you did bodybuilding? And if so, can you tell us about your bodybuilding experience?
Yeah, so right after powerlifting, I was just kind of working out, wasn't really doing anything. I was doing the CrossFit seminars, spent a lot of time with Dave Castro and crew, and I got stuck around 260 body weight when I was coming down, And Castro was asked, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, you know, just like doing circuit style stuff, like high intensity kind of training." He was like, "Why don't you do CrossFit?" And I was like, "Well, I got to get in shape to do CrossFit." And you know, he goes, "That's the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard." Like, so I started to do CrossFit. So I did CrossFit for a while, but I said, "Oh, if I'm gonna do CrossFit, I'm gonna go from the strongest to the fittest." And
Right.
I think Mark Bell and I did an article at the time on that. And so I was really into it. But again, because of who I am and who I was connected with, I got to pick the brain of all the, you know, the guys who were the fucking best in CrossFit, and they're all training 3-4 times a day and 2 hours at a time, and like they're doing all the, you know, they're really beating their bodies up. So I just start doing it. You know, that's what you do. And I'd actually done 2 training sessions that day, and I went in to train the powerlifting crew at night, and they were bench pressing, and I decided I'd jump in with them and bench press, and that's when I tore the pec. So, you know, CrossFit, I got hurt doing while I was doing CrossFit, but it wasn't from CrossFit. It was from my ego thinking I could beat, you know, step in and show these other guys like how to bench, you know. So that sidelined me for a little bit, and then I was kind of like, well, what can I do? And I really looked at bodybuilding as a very low injury risk, right? Like you're essentially using lighter weights, just squeezing the muscle. So I got into the bodybuilding, and you know, I hired John Meadows. You know, he's passed, but John Meadows to do my training. I hired Shelby Starnes to do my nutrition. And the reason I went with John was because he incorporated so much of Louis' training philosophy. So, you know, it was still squatting with bands and, you know, different thing. Now the order was different, and we pre-fatigue like your hamstrings before we would squat, and, you know, like all of that stuff. But basically, like, it was, you know, the conjugate bodybuilding program, you know, and he was doing a lot of stuff with Dave Tate, and so it was a lot. The training was a lot of fun. I was still getting to lift kind of heavy and using the, you know, bands and stuff like that, which was fun. Shelby had my diet dialed in, but it was pretty brutal because we found out I'm super carb sensitive. So essentially, all I was eating was turkey meat for about 6 weeks before the contest. So I had to eat a lot of fucking meat. Thank God for like flavor gods. I was, you know, I would season my meat, and it tasted like sausage. It tastes like chicken. Like it's all turkey, but I get it taste whatever I wanted. So, so we did the show, and I got second at the show. The guy I lost to turned pro a week later. But I was pissed. I was so fucking pissed that I got second. Everybody was saying, "Oh, I lost over 100 pounds." When I did the bodybuilding show, I was 220. So I lost over 100 pounds. Everybody was telling me how fucking amazing it is, and I was pissed because I didn't win. And so I was gonna take a little break and figure out what I want to do next. And so I was like, okay, like one of the NPC judges told me, he was like, you know, he came talk to me. He's like, hey, you know, did you just move to San Diego? Like, where were you competing before? I was like, I've never competed. And he goes, dude, he's like, you could be a pro bodybuilder in like 3-4. He's like, you have perfect symmetry. I have a very similar shape to Dennis Wolf. So I have high lats, which is, but basically he's like, your upper pecs, because of course we don't, with bench press, and we're in a decline position basically, right?
Yeah.
So he said, you got to bring your upper pecs up, and you got to get wider in the back, right? You got to get your lats to come out. You're very thick, but you're not wide. So I went on high Justin Harris. My body weight was up at 290 again. And ultimately I was eating probably my 5-6 meals of the day out of Tupperware, rice and chicken and broccoli. And I just up again, right? And I was sweating while I'm eating, breathing heavy, fork down, and I just like had this moment of realization. I was like, you're doing it again. You are obsessed, and you're doing the same thing you walked away from powerlifting. You're now doing in a different sport. Like this isn't healthy. And I stopped, and you know, that was that. And so that was six years ago now. Okay. And so for the last 6 years, I've been avoiding trying to lifting heavy because of how weak I am, and you know, trying to get my body healthy because I got all these nagging injuries. Both knees seem to be fucked, and you know, but the lower back's pretty jacked up. But bench is okay, so I'm like, all right, get back into the bench, fix everything else, and you know, go from there. But yeah, it was, you know, it's crazy. I did that one show, that bodybuilding show, but you know, I was obsessed again, and I was like, you know, at the time my career was going well. I was in a relationship that just ended, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're doing the same thing as you did before, just in a different sport. And then I really thought about it, like, okay, let's say I turn pro in bodybuilding. I knew I wasn't going to be Mr. Olympia. Dennis Wolf was never Mr. Olympia. And so even though I kind of had similar symmetry to him and look, like, okay, like, could I really ever get as big as him? And if I did, it was never Mr. Olympia, right? He was a top thing, but so how much money am I really going to make from it? And it was like, you know, I was going to conventions, and, you know, Jay Cutler's working a booth, Ronnie Coleman's where I'm thinking, this isn't exactly what I see my future as, is
Right.
sitting in a convention trying to sell protein. Right. Like, these guys clearly like dedicated everything to the sport and have not been able to really monetize it the way they should. Like, right. they shouldn't be going every weekend to a supplement store. And so it just was a moment of realization that, like, maybe I should focus a little bit more on other parts of my life. And
yeah.
And I think I swung the pendulum too far, you know. But you know, fitness should have stayed a staple, and I should have kept working out. But I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. I don't know how you guys are, but it's like, if I'm not going to do something, I'm just fucking not going to do it. Like, I'm either all in or I'm out. Same. And so that's kind of the approach I took. So that's why, you know, when I was looking at, when Louis passed, and I was looking at because it really pissed me off. Right? It really pissed me off, because I knew that if I'd gone back, one of the reasons I didn't go back to Westside in the last few years is because I knew that I wouldn't be able to train. And I was almost embarrassed, you know, like, what would Louis think of me? Like, you know, that like, you know, I'd gone from who I was to this, and, you know, which is stupid, but that was what was on my mind. And so I really started looking, why don't I lift? And then I realized, because I don't compete. And so that's when it was like, okay, well, I have to set some goal and I have to go compete. And so even if it takes me a year or so to get back on the platform, like, now I have an end goal that I'm trying to get to. All of a sudden, all that motivation, all that, you know, has come back. And it's like, I'm like, fuck, is that all it took? All I had to do was pick a fucking goal. Like, but because I try to just be normal, like, just work out to be normal, I didn't fucking want to do it. Like, and, you know, normal sucks. I don't think I'll ever be normal, unfortunately. So
same here. Hey, AJ, you mentioned Flavor Gods. What was that you put on your ground turkey? Is that a
yeah, it's just like a dry rub, like
okay.
Seasoning.
Okay.
And yeah, they get all sorts of flavors, and it just allowed me to just eat turkey but never feel like I was eating the same thing.
Is it called Flavor Gods?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm looking for something to put on ground turkey, ground hamburger, just to make it taste better half the time. So
exactly, yeah.
I'm stealing that from you. So all right.
Okay. So this is the last question that we have. What advice can you offer to new lifters that are just starting out in the sport?
The biggest thing is get a crew of people that you can train with, and like, travel. Like, so many fucking times I see people say, like, do you know any good gyms? And they'll list off their town. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, 4 people will say, oh, that's 30 minutes from me. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I was when I was back at Ohio, there's people that said they train them in the morning crew at Westside, which I believe trains at 4 a.m. They going back to George Halbert's time, the morning crew, right? And I said, morning crew trains at 8. You guys are crazy. But they have 3 guys that train at that time that travel an hour and a half to get there. Brandon Lilly and Jake Anderson, when they started coming to Westside, they would get up at 1 a.m. and drive 3 hours to come train on a Friday morning. You know, they had moved there eventually. I was training an hour and a half to go to drive up and train with Brent. Like, I don't think enough lifters realize the value in getting around people stronger than them. And I think they would, like, there's no point being king of the shitheads in your own fucking gym. Right. Whoever the strongest guy in your gym is, that's fucking it for you, right? So if you're the strongest guy, you know, and Ryan, you've had to push yourself so many times, because you're not only the strongest guy in the gym, you're the strongest guy out there. There's nobody fucking can compete. Like, that level of, like, there is very few people that can do that, right? And so for most people, especially in the beginning, you know, if they're the strongest guy because they deadlift 600 pounds, whoop de fucking woo. Like, you know, you're training in a commercial gym with shitty weights, not a deadlift. Like, go fucking train with other people. And even if you don't do it very often, you know, once a week, once every couple of weeks, like, whatever, but, like, get yourself around other lifters who are competitive, who are stronger than you, because you'll pick up things just by watching them. And that's really, like, what I realized with Lou, and he would say stuff, but it's took years and years and years of observation. He just saw what people would do, and if it made him stronger, if it didn't make him stronger, and he had all that wisdom and knowledge, and you can't pick that up online. Like
Agreed.
The coaching cues that you give your guys, some of that comes through on video, but the video is edited. If you're there for a whole session, I guarantee someone would hear you say things, and they'd be like, "Oh, damn. Like, I never thought of it like that. Never thought of grabbing the bar and twisting the pinky, or like, lifting my big toe in the squat. Like, these are things that, like, coaching cues that you're looking at someone and you see them do something weird, and you just give them one little tip and it makes all, I think, most beginners to just say, I am a beginner. I don't know shit, and I need to go find someone better than me that does, and stick with something, man. Like, so many people, like, what program online training can I sign up with? Like, I'm not against online training, but don't go from online coach to online coach. Like, pick someone and stay with them. Like, it takes years to learn how someone operates, how, stuff like that. And people are in a rush, man. Everybody's too many people in a rush. They want to do too much too soon. And, it took me 10 years to get to my level when I broke the world record. I don't know how long it took you, Ryan, but
14 years to be a world champion. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were overnight success, right?
That's what people want, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, the knowledge that I've acquired from everybody and where I'm at now, to pass that knowledge down to other people. I say it took me 14 years to bench that 800. I think with the knowledge that I have, I can pass down to these, not necessarily beginner lifters, but they can be, an elite level lifter in 7 years, in half the time, with what I know now. And that's the kind of exciting part, is teaching others, and kind of be on the coaching side of it now is fun too, because to see everything that worked for me work for them, and to take somebody who never did speed bench and have them do speed bench, and then see them put 40-50 pounds on their bench in 8 weeks just doing speed bench. I mean, I've seen it, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a little bit back into coaching and build a crew out here, and maybe even open a private training facility. I got a gym in my garage, but it'd be nice to be able to have a place that has everything that we had at Westside, and be able to train people properly, But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Ashley, you're out of questions?
I am. And our chat box, like we were talking in the beginning, it didn't look right. It still isn't.
So we're going to have to go to our phones.
Going on.
I have a few questions for AJ,
got it on my phone, and it's still kind of acting weird, but there are some, I don't think they're coming through. So if we go through it and somebody you asked a question or a comment and we didn't ask it on here, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
it's
my software
something's
is
being weird.
hiccuping tonight.
It's been hiccuping, like it's been freezing up, like on
our end.
On our end, and it looks. I've been watching it on here, and it is on here.
Let me ask a few questions, and then you can go through the chat box on your phone. I just wanted to run by you, AJ, and talk about speed bench. I sat with Dave Hoff a couple years ago, and he mentioned that you guys based your speed percentages 30% of your shirted max, and that's what you would use for speed work. And I was just curious if that is something that worked. The traditional 9x3 at 50% and whatnot that I continue to do, but I've never done the a percentile off my 1 rep max in my shirt. Is that?
Yeah. So we just found, like, we were trying to figure out like what would work, and so different people had done lower percentages and stuff like that.
Right.
So Dave and I used about 35%. We stopped doing waves on the bench press, so all we did was the same, basically 35%, and we just cycle bars and accommodating resistance, and that worked great for us. And we really just focused on speed. We still did the 9 sets of 3.
Okay.
So we didn't change anything there for that. And the only thing we might do is after we did our speed bench, we might do like a rep set, right? And just as many reps as you can or something with the weight. But like, we just found that 30-35% was a sweet spot for us, and it saved us trying to figure out, like, with every bar what the max was and stuff like that. And so if we were moving it really fast, we would just add an extra chain or another band or something like that. And but we would just really, and you can see it in our lifting style. And this is how you know if someone does speed work or not. If they speed up in the bench press, like, you know, it comes up slow and then at the top it just snaps.
Yep.
You know, they fucking do speed work. And so that me and Dave, that was the thing. If we could get the shirt to get it off of our chest and get it moving, we knew we could snap, and we knew how to twist underneath the bar, like, you know, even get it up, and then like, you know, your elbow would almost be locked, but you could rotate the elbows and get a lockout. And so we did a lot. That's what we try to work, is on that top end. So we had a lot of times where, I don't know what the accommodating wrist system be, but like we would keep working up, make sure we had that speed. But yeah, we just found that it really made a difference. And also because we were squatting so heavy, our shoulders were always beat up. And so, you know, we'd squat heavy Fridays, and then we're coming in Saturdays, Sunday mornings, and, you know, we couldn't do a lot of weight on the bench. And so this allowed us to keep training it, you know, keep the speed, and let our shoulders recover. Because it was, you know, when our numbers got up there in the squat, that's really made a huge impact on the rest of the training. And dynamic work was, for me, was more brutal than max effort work for recovery, because you're doing so many sets, you know.
And when you're when a contest is nowhere in sight, and you're what does your speed bench look like when you're not specifically training for a contest in 12 weeks? Like, does it differ, or do you do you add reps? Do you add sets with the same percentage, or do you just stick with the same protocol?
I mean, speed work was pretty much, for the bench press, was pretty much always the same. And we would, depending on how far out, we might go a couple weeks and do more of a 5x5, 6x5, you know, higher reps. We might take a cambered bar and to get bigger depth, you know, and build up that bottom end strength. But typically speed work was very, very similar year round. And you know, we would beef up the accessory work, you know. So like after speed work, we might do, instead of dumbbell extension stuff, we would do heavy ass like JM presses, or barbell work. We had that, I don't even know what it's called, but the like it's a spring bar, basically.
Freak bar.
Yeah, freak bar.
Yep,
and
I got one.
So you have to really spread it. You know, so we would do stuff with that, which, you know, you can't go that heavy with, but like it just kills you. And Tommy said that Rogue might be making one of those, so I'm hoping that's true. I'll get one of those, because you don't see them anywhere very much. But
I got one because Louis sent it to me, and I cherish that thing. I keep it in my house. I don't leave it at the gym.
Yeah, it's a great bar. So no, that was really like for the bench press. You know, we wouldn't get the biggest changes was just, we just didn't get in the shirts. So like all of max effort work was raw. But even max effort work, my rotation was, you know, I would do, I would call it an assisted day, right? So I'd either be in the shirt, I would do reverse bands. So like that was like the assisted day. And then like the next week, I would do like a partial range of motion. So that was floor presses, board presses, something like that. And then the third week was against accommodating resistance, full range. So like, you know, against bands, against chains, those kind of things. So I did that 3-week rotation, and that worked really, really well for me. And of course, when meets weren't close, I just wouldn't put the shirts on, and, you know, try to avoid the shirt as much as possible.
Was Louis a big fan of that reverse bench press? He always said that was a tester, not a builder.
Like that at all. You know, we and a lot of it was because the same thing, like you're lightening the load at the top, right? And so the whole concept with accommodating resistance, I know you know this, I'm just saying it for those that are listening, but the whole concept is that as the joint angle gets smaller, the load gets heavier, so you're forced to accelerate through the entire lift, right? And so, you know, because if the weight's the same and it gets to the top, it's getting easier. You don't snap, you don't push, like, so you don't train to drive through. And he explained, like a punch, right? When you punch, you don't stop when you hit someone, you punch through. But they stop you because you're hitting them, but you punch through. And so the whole point of that, so with reverse band, he saw it as it was just a big you know, ego lift, you could load it up. So you know, he didn't mind it if you set the bands up where it was just taking a little bit off, you know. But I would see guys, not at Westside, but videos get posted, they'd be doing reverse band in a shirt off of a 2-board, you know. And that's where, like, I always told people, but if you're more than actual traditional lifts, you're probably, you know, fucking up your training. How do you know what's doing what, you know? Like, You get, the band's lifting it, is the shirt lifting it, is the two board, like what the hell? So.
Just a quick question. I have a saying that I'm pretty hardcore about my training sessions, and I don't miss workouts. And I always tell my crew, we don't miss workouts unless you're dead, in jail, or in the hospital, or a new one is you have COVID. Did you ever miss workouts? Did you ever show up late for a workout? I mean, was it very strict? I mean, you didn't do that shit there, did you?
No, I mean, that was a lot of guys would end up getting kicked out because they couldn't make it on time. Or they would miss workouts. So like, like if you're supposed to be there and you miss a couple weeks in a row and you don't fucking tell anybody, Louis would just be like, hey, this isn't, yeah. So, I mean, I had to do work trips and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I'd always get in the training. But yeah, like while I was at Westside, pretty much, well, even before that, and I think that's the other thing most people don't realize that, if Christmas Day happens to fall on a Wednesday, well, no presents get opened until I've benched, motherfucker.
That's right.
Like, and in the movie when Bob Coe's talking about his son,
yeah,
like I feel for Bob and I feel for his son, but at the same time, I know that I would have done the fucking same thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is like it's like watching that and realizing like there's no difference between Bob and me when it comes to that mentality.
Right.
Like I can empathize with him, I can feel for him, but I know that he doesn't regret anything. Like because you at that time, like that's the most important thing, and that's why you're at Westside, because it was the most important thing. If it wasn't the most important thing for you, you shouldn't be at Westside, in my opinion. And I think that a lot of people can't understand that because, and I'm sure you've had training partners like this that, they'll show up here and there, but they're not their life's not dedicated to it. And, they don't understand you don't understand them. But at the end of the day, like, when training is the most important thing, because that's what's most important to you. And that's, the rest of the day is not right if you've missed training. So yeah, it was one of those things where it wasn't even a thought process really. It was just, you just get up and you go, and I might miss breakfast, but I was always there by 8 to start training. And if you weren't, you were walking into fucking verbal abuse. So.
I only imagine.
That's funny.
All right, that's all I got. Ashley, if you want to do some live chat stuff here, and I know we got to do it on our phone, so I can't see it. So I trust you can.
But I was gonna say, I know this might be a little bit sooner than what you're talking about, doing a bench only meet again. But we have been trying to throw the Kennelly Classic, a meet that we would like to put on here in the Tri-Cities. I think it would be in August. Is that correct?
We're planning for it in August this year.
So that's something to maybe consider. I know it might be a little soon, but
we're trying to get money for it also.
And invite you. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I know it might be a little bit soon, but had to throw it out there. So
also, AJ,
we'll be in touch with you about
we've been on for 2 hours, and I know time is important, and you're family man. So we'll try to get these just kind of go for the questions there.
We'll go through them pretty quick. And I think there's a lot that didn't come in. I don't know what is going on with our chat and comments. So
do the best you can.
We'll kind of fly by these pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We've got CJ Morgani, who started off and just said he was really excited to have AJ as a guest today. Roger Brome wants to thank AJ for coming on the show. He was also very excited, and several people are agreeing with that. They're really excited to see AJ on here. Jerry Cool, huge fan of AJ. I do want to ask, what if you could put into words what it was like going from 1,000 squat to 1,1200? Any specific training?
Could you say that again? I'm having trouble.
I don't know what that was about. So my Siri on my phone.
Don't say Siri.
Sorry. That was weird. It's okay. So sorry. What if you could go? Gosh, I'm so sorry.
Very cool.
What if you could put into words what it was like going from 1,000 squat to 11 to 1,200? Any specific training changes, technique, and same with bench going from 7, 8 to 900. That made sense.
Someone asked me what does it feel like, and I was like, it feels the same as your max. So it's like, after a while, the weight, I never felt any different. I remember Jay Fry asking me once on the bench press, he's like your bones are gonna snap, and I go, no, I would not fucking lift if I felt like my bones are gonna like it's not even been in my head. And I did a lot of like sports psychology work. Like I didn't even realize this, and in college I was lucky enough to work with a sports psychologist, but I was already doing it. So I would do visualization, I would do self-talk, I would do all of that stuff, right? So when I squatted my first 1,000, mentally I'd already squatted 1,000 times. Like I ran through it the night before I squatted. I ran through it, and I ran through missing it. I would fix it, and I'd go over the cues in my head. And so like that really was like, a big piece of my training was just like I would constantly be analyzing my lifts. I would constantly be thinking through it. In terms of training, like the weights got heavier. Obviously, I was at Westside when I went from 1,000 to the 1,205. So Circa Max was a new thing I'd never done before, which is just insane band training. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is we do a lot of different cycles where, like, we do the bands at 25%, but then we do bands at 60%, right? And we reverse the band and the bar weight, and we do it instead of a speed strength, we're doing a strength speed phase. And I'm going to start putting some of this stuff on back up on YouTube. I took it all down a long time ago. I'm going to start republishing it. But like there was a lot of different phases we went through. So like that was like it was same Westside stuff, but I was now at Westside, and I was going through these cycles doing that. When I went from the 11 squat, the 1140 to 1205, the biggest change was I actually decided, I was like, okay, like I know how to get the most out of my gear, but I need to get my raw squat up. Like like if I can gain 50 to 100 pounds on my raw squat, I'll hit this 1200, right? And so my max effort work and stuff, I started doing low box squat stuff, that kind of stuff. So that was really the only change on the squat. I specifically for the 1200, I only trained squat on max effort. I ditched deadlifts, but at the meet, I think I only deadlifted like 780, so my deadlift suffered from it, right? So don't know if it was the right decision, like, as it was my last meet, but I got the squat. On the bench press, nothing changed other than the tricep stuff. Literally nothing changed. Because I was doing, like, I was basically training. I had Ryan's template before I went there, and that's basically speed work and max effort work.
Mm-hmm.
So, floor presses, boards, like, I'd done some stuff with Metal Militia before. So, I'd learned from Sebastian and those guys when they were working with Tommy Fannin and folks like that. So I understood the shirt. I understood how to maximize the shirt. So I was never really worried about that. And I had once I got that Phenom, I went from the Rage X to the Phenom, and that started helping my lifts go up again. And then because you could set it differently. And the Rage X, it was just where it was. Mm-hmm. It gave you a lot, but you couldn't jack it. You couldn't do anything with it and touch. So the Phenom was a game changer there. But really, it was just mentally, right? I just became more committed to the lifts. Everything else, nothing else mattered. I would say I was doing a lot more accessory work. So like I added in extra workouts. Like I never did extra workouts before I went to Westside. At Westside, I had days I was dragging the sleds. Me and Tony would come back in on a lot of days and do upper back, lat work, ab work. So we were doing a lot more accessories in the Westside. And I remember like at the Detroit Nationals, all the Westside guys had these huge upper backs, and I just thought it was the fucking coolest thing ever. And then when I went to Westside, I realized it's because they fucking train upper back all the time, like face pulls. And so I was like, it makes tons of sense. And Agner, who was Brent's handler and training partner, he had a massive upper back too, which I thought was really, really cool. So, I was all for doing all that extra work. But the main stuff was still the same. I followed essentially the original Westside template is what I followed. We just, obviously it had adjusted over time in terms of exercises, but the structure was the same. And I think that, like, Louis just tweaked the movements in it, but the overall percentages and stuff pretty much stayed the same. I know they switched recently on squats to 5x5 and stuff to adjust for the time on attention and also the training level of the guys. But I wouldn't do it any different. But I think that's the most of the difference is just understanding the importance of focus and not letting distractions get in the way. I mean, if you train don't take a break for 10 years, you can be as strong as me and Ryan too. That's what I always tell people.
I like that one.
I like that. That's cool. Okay, that's a good answer. I like that. Okay. Jerry Cole also asks if you could tell 21-year-old AJ any piece of advice, what would you tell him?
Probably to stay single, because I went through I went through a divorce and broken engagement, and the reality is when you see the reason professional athletes, actors, all these people struggle so much is because your sport is the thing that's number one.
Right.
And having a partner that doesn't understand that, through no fault of their own. For me, like, my partner met me before I was even, I wasn't AJ when she met me, I didn't go by the hat or nothing. So like, I became this guy. But the reality is that, like, you just don't put that other person first. And so they rarely understand, and essentially the sport becomes competition to them, right? It's like you're cheating on them with the sport. And I miss weddings, like family weddings and birthdays, because I didn't want to travel. Like, I got training, like I got to meet, I got this. And so it was very difficult to maintain a relationship. And I wasn't probably a good partner. And, the other person, hopefully, they've gone on and had a much better life than what they were getting with me at the time. I've had to radically do a lot of work and really change who I am to really even understand, like, how you're even supposed to show up in a real relationship, right? And being committed to your partner, as much as I was committed to the weights, is a whole new game for me, So that's probably what I would say. And it's funny because, a lot of guys at Westside did great, and then when they got a significant other, that's when they quit. So I saw it at Westside. I had the significant other, but I don't know if that was better, because I think that, it was a distraction. I wasn't good. I didn't feel good about it, but at the end of the day, I always made decisions that what's going to make me stronger. I'm putting up with your shit's not, so I'm out. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to eat another food, and that's not really the way you should be. But obviously, if you're with someone that lifts and understands all that, it's different. You share a love, but I didn't have that. And
right.
Again, like, no fault of theirs. They were an amazing person, and in different circumstances, I'm sure we would have ended up doing great. But what I needed and who I was, it just didn't fit.
Right.
And so that's what I'd probably tell myself: just be single, focus on lifting, and you don't disappoint anybody, and cost money too to go through a divorce. No fun.
Right.
My best lifts came when I was single for many years. So yeah.
Let's see here. Our friend here, Mary, asks you, "Hi AJ, good to see you. How hard was it to walk away and retire from competing? What was the determining factor to your decision?" I know that we know parts of that, but
yeah, I mean, legitimately thought I was, and people had, like, that was the thing. I had examples of people who were washed up. I had examples of people who had a heart attack, and I legitimately was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack and die.
Mm-hmm.
So walking away from competing was actually, I almost didn't finish the meet because, like, mentally I was like, oh, I'm done. Like, I've done it. Like, I'm done. So that meet was a really tough meet to finish, but I knew I wasn't going to compete again. In my head at that level.
Yeah.
And but it was harder to walk away from Westside. And Tony Ramos actually made me take Lou to breakfast. And I remember walking in there, and Tony never really came to breakfast anymore. And Louis like, "Are you going to jail?" Like, that's what he thought. He thought I'd made Tony come because Tony was going to go to jail, or I was going to go to jail. And tell him that I decided it was time for me to walk away. But that was a harder decision because I walked away not only from the gym, like, and Louis, but I walked away from a brotherhood, and training partners who counted on me. Like, and I would never say I was anybody's coach in that gym, but I did coach. I ran the monolift. I helped every fucking guy. Like, I would load everybody's plates before I would lift. Like, I was selfless in that sense, right? But I was there knowing that they were going to help me, right? So,
right.
I got what I wanted out of it. But I really was they were a part of, like, my success, and I walked away from all of them, really.
Yeah.
And I know, like, when the documentary came out, that was really fucking hard for me to sit through, like, to know that I'd left that gym, and and knowing that they talked about this last chapter that Louis, and it never really happened. There wasn't really another chapter. Like, that was me and Dave, and that era was like the end, you know, and the sport's coming back now, but it's really hard to watch that documentary and feel that. And I remember I watched it and I was like, fuck, I gotta move back to Columbus. Like, I owe it to everybody. You know, but after talking to the guys, the gym wasn't the same. But
Right.
yeah, I think that was hardest thing, was just walking away from everybody and everything like that. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I just didn't see another option. Like, it was, if I stay there, I'm going to die, because I cannot not compete and be at Westside. Like,
Right.
this is my job. And I literally had to just sever the ties.
That's
So
right.
you know, it was very hard, but you know, I did it by leaving Columbus. You know, that was really what I did. I
Right.
just packed up and said, all right, if I move to San Diego, like, I can't get suckered back in, you know?
Yeah.
Right. How did Louis take the news? Like, when you
Uh,
told that day at breakfast, like,
He always said, I'm sure he was pissed off, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Louis was just like, he was probably pissed off. He was angry because, like, I'd been such like I said, I was a part of everybody's training. It wasn't just me, right?
right.
But he had a level of respect for me that like very few people who have left sat down with Louis and talked to him. Most people just fucking never came back. And so John Stafford did, and me, and I'm sure there's a couple other people, but Lou said to me 2 years later, when I was we went to lunch and I stayed at his house at that Arnold. But when we were talking over that weekend, he said to me, you know, he's like, the fact you even told me, the fact you explained it, he was like, that's all I ever asked for, you know? And he had told me early in my career, you got to do what makes you happy, you know, like fuck everybody else, do what makes you happy. And so I actually said that at breakfast with him. I was like, you know, you always told me I got to do what makes me happy. And this is the only thing I think that's going to make me happy. And he said, I wish it didn't have to be that way. You always have a place here. You're always welcome. You know, and then I think in his book Last Samurai, he called me a Knight Rider, you know, guy who came and went. So, but you know, I think what pissed him off is he saw more potential in me.
Yeah.
And you know, and he saw something, and I couldn't see it in myself. And I think that pissed him off more than anything, because he really did feel like I could have done that 3,000 total.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and he got it with Dave and stuff like that. But you know, Dave wasn't a morning crew guy. You know,
Right.
Dave was Westside. He was there from the beginning. You know, even though Dave left and now and whatnot, like, I still consider Dave Westside, and I think that but I was morning crew, and that was Louis' crew. So
Right.
there was a little something special to Lou. You know, he always talked about Neutron and this and that, but you know, he was proud that the morning crew had that biggest total for a minute. I think he would like to see me, you know, get that all time. So
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, like I said, I think that it was just, that was a transition, and you know, new guys came in, they did good stuff, and you know, we've had Burley Hawk came in and did massive raw numbers, and
Yep.
and Spiegel did big raw numbers, this is what weird when people say about Westside lifters not being strong, you know, like, yeah, you know, Mike Wolf, you know, who just passed, like, he benched over 600 raw, like,
Yep.
like it's fucking, people are strong, but you know, you compete in gear and all of a sudden you're not strong, so it's crazy.
Okay. Great answer. That was a good question, and that was a great answer. Matthew Brooks, big fan of AJ as well. I want to ask, because I never remember hearing of it happening. Were you injured while competing, and did you never bomb in a meet? You know, we kind of talked about that. This might have been asked before we.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember bombing. I know I did bad, but so I had very regimented attempt schedule, right?
Mhm.
So I would go 85 to 88% of my max for my opener, and then I would go 93 to 95% for my second, and then I would take 105 for my third.
Mhm.
And so only if my training had been going good would I change, and I would open at the 93, 95%, and then jump to a PR.
Mhm.
So because of that approach, I never opened with weights that I didn't think I could smash. So you know, I came close to bombing on the bench in my last meet. I missed my opener, then my shirt ripped on the way up, but just a top layer, not all the way through. So, but I put another shirt on for my second attempt, one of those red Inza shirts. That fucking thing blew up in half. So then I had to put my we duct taped my torn shirt, put it back on, and I ground out 875. because I was opening with that 95%, because I thought I was going to be able to bench 1,000. I really felt like I was a 970, 1,000 pound bencher. And that was my goal, was to jump to 950 on my second and then go from there. But that 975, I mean, it was the slowest bench press I'd done in years. But yeah, I was very calculated with my attempts, and I think I might have bombed out in an early Iron Gladiator meet. But I'm not sure if I think I might have just missed 2 squats, which to me, it was always like, if I had bad squats, I was always pissed for the rest of the meet.
Right.
But yeah, I was very calculated, and Brent taught me a lot of that stuff, right? He taught me a lot about being calculated. And you know, in 3 lift competition, you don't want to take those risks, because, you know, it null and voids all of your lifts if you bomb out. So, you know, I never understood guys who'd be opening with a max on a deadlift, and then they would bomb, and it's like, you just forfeited your squat and your bench, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Bench only, it's a little different, because you're going in, you're going to win if it's, you know, if you're going for that. And but I know, Ron, you were very calculated too. I remember those meets that, you know, you had already benched massive numbers, but you would open pretty conservative, and sometimes you'd win the meet off of that, because, you know, things wouldn't go good with the heavy weights. So
Right.
there's something to it, you know. It's a strategy that I always use, and I think that a lot of people, there's something when you hit a lift, there's like an endorphin rush, right?
Yes,
An
sir.
adrenaline rush, and like you're pumped. When you miss a lift, you go, oh shit, right? And it's a different effect. You almost have an adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
And
a
so
panic.
like I was always,
Totally.
you know, Brent nailed it into me in training. Like, you never want to miss in training, because your workout goes from a good workout to a bad workout. So you want to avoid, you want to end on a positive more than a negative, right? And so that was the same with the meets. Like, you don't want to go to a meet and shoot for 3 for 9. Like, you want to shoot for 9 for 9, and the thirds should always be PRs, unless you know you're not going to hit it. So I just kept that philosophy, and it served me well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Awesome. Matthew Brooks also. What do you feel was the key to your longevity in getting you to the highest level? And are there any changes you would make to your training looking back now? I know we kind of touched on that. But...
Yeah, we touched on the training one. I think, you know, key to longevity was really commitment. You know, that's, I mean, and it's funny, because I think that I've learned in life, that's the key to success in everything, is commitment. You know, you want to do good in your career, you got to be committed.
That's
you know,
right.
too many people, you know, I remember my dad, you know, he worked for the same company for like 20 years, you know, and nowadays you're hard pressed to find any 20-year-old that's worked. I mean, I talk to people, and this is their like 6th job, and they're only like 22. Like, how have you had that many real jobs, you know? Like, but it's that commitment. Same I've learned in relationships. Like, the key to a good relationship is just commitment, right? It's not allowing anything else to get in the way, and for it to be your focus. And that was, for me, that was it. Powerlifting was the thing I was committed to. It was the thing I was gonna, you know, pour my heart and soul into. And I didn't, you know, again, great advice from Brent. I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs, I didn't party, you know, because I had to fucking train the next day.
That's
So
right.
I don't want to be tired. And so I made those sacrifices. And again, I always, you know, anybody who's willing to make all those sacrifices is going to be successful in whatever they decide to do. Most people aren't willing to sacrifice that, though. You don't want to miss out, and they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. It's like, you know, okay, cool. Well, you don't want to be a world record holder.
No.
Right.
Those people put 50% into what they're doing. They're half-assing it, you know. We're 110% in, you know. That's how I do it. Oh.
Yeah. And I've learned that there's nothing wrong with that if that's what they want to do. But they need to accept it, because most people live delusional, right? I want to be a world record holder, but I want to go to the club on Friday night.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, it's like,
Right. No, it doesn't work that
yeah,
way, right?
exactly.
Let's see here. Jerry Cool. What was a day of eating like back at, we did touch on this, but what was a day of eating like back at your peak performance? Did you ever consider going to 350 like Lou told you to do?
No.
No.
That was why I quit.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't even know how I would have gotten to that. Probably, you know, I would have had to ultimately go back to eating pure junk, and, you know, figuring out a way to get more calories in. But, you know, it was such a foreign thing. And you know, like I said, I would eat until I almost, you know, baby puke in your mouth. And then you know, okay, well, I still got to finish this food. And, you know, I actually learned this from Ryan. I remember at Detroit, it was the first time I ate with you, and you fucking whole, like 50 wings, and you just literally would like put the wing in your mouth and fucking pull it out, and it was like all the meat was gone. And you
Like
went through 50, yeah, it was like within 10 minutes you had eaten all of that food, and I was like,
so
oh,
fast.
you have to eat fast to eat a lot. Like that's another fucking key, right? And
Yeah.
you look at the competitive eaters, you got a window that you can fucking eat. So you start to learn all these things,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just you go, oh, speed, quantity, calories, like all of this shit, like and I you know, you don't see, like the reality is in powerlifting, like for the last 10 years, show me a show guy. You got raw guys, but like there's nobody competing in the show division full power right now, putting up massive numbers, you know, and it's just interesting. And if there's one or two guys, right?
Right.
There's really not many people above 275, 242. The sport got pretty when raw lifting came around, is what I always say. You know, people started worrying about what they look like. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Health, whatnot, but you know, it's interesting, and I'm glad to see there's bigger lifters coming back and bigger numbers being put up. It's exciting again.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see here. AJ, I want to ask, is there any crazy deadlift stories from Westside that you remember?
I mean, Luke was the best deadlifter when I was there, and you know, we would do a lot of he liked to do quad minis in the quadded minis or monster minis in the power rack. And, you know, I seen him do like 800 pounds with it's like 400 pound band tension. And I remember hearing stories about like Chuck doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, but yeah, like Luke, man, like, you know, if he had stayed healthy, I think he could have pulled close to 9, maybe more. But yeah, you know, that was the craziest stuff I saw. It was less of the main movement. It was always these like odd little, like, you know, we do like a, you know, pin 2 rack pull against quad bands, and you know, I would, you know, be 4 plates, 5 plates, and that would be it. And these guys would keep going up, and I'm like, what the fuck, you know? And you know, but yeah, some of them probably did too much in the gym, but yeah, that was it. And then the back and forth story with Greg and Luke, you know, that happened every fucking week, but that was crazy to watch those two go at it as well. It was a lot of fun.
I have a quick question. Was there any betting? I know Louis talked about putting dollars down. Did you see any of that, or was that a different time?
Yeah, that was before me. So
okay.
Yeah, like I think the old guys, well, the you know, former Westside guys and that, they always talk about how we were soft, you know, because but most of us had some form of job. You know, most of us stayed out of jail.
Yeah.
You know, a few guys didn't, but most did. Like, you know, and so they, you know, most of us, it was lifting was our, you know, the main thing, and we stayed out of trouble. So they looked at it and they said we were soft, and that we were, it was a different, they considered us a different era, you know, and then, you know, this, so it's interesting. But, you know, as times change, you know, that's what happens. And, you know, our era, there was the internet, so you couldn't do too much without it getting out there, you know.
That's true.
That's very true. That's a really good point. Matthew Brooks, and I know you meant Mike, Brent Micasell, was that his name?
Yeah, Brent Micasell.
Because somebody was asking, by Brent, were you talking about Brent Tracy? And it was Brent Micasell that you were referring to.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to add to that? That was a pretty quick answer to that question, but he was thinking Brent Tracy. Do you know Brent Tracy at all?
Yeah. Brent, I'd consider him a Westside. He's been going there for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
But he lives in Tennessee. But he was very close to Louis. And actually, when I was back, we got to go to dinner because he was there with Doris, visiting Doris. So that was really, really cool. But he ran a lot of meets that we did. And it was a big reason we were in the SPF at the time, because they were using that federation. He was using that federation for his local meets. And Louis was like, all right, well, we're just going to start doing your meets, because that was when Lou got upset with everybody and all that stuff. So, but yeah, Brent's a great guy. He's been around for a long time, produced some great lifters, and he's big in the Midwest in Tennessee area, putting on meets and that kind of stuff. So,
okay. So to Matthew Brooks, it was Brent Micasell that he was talking about in the beginning so much. Josh Tippy. I know AJ talked a little about Greg Panora and Luke Edwards' deadlift battle on Westside versus the World. So this wasn't really a question. I don't know if he's asking for like a little bit more details about that, or he didn't ask
not
it as
really
a
a question.
question, but I think he meant it to be. Is there anything that you'd like to? I know I think it got brought up again tonight, and I think he asked this before it did. But is there anything that you want to add about Greg Panora and Luke Edwards' deadlift battle?
Man, I mean, they were just great. I mean, we covered most of it, but they were just great
Yeah.
training partners, you know. And it was what was really, really cool. We were all different weight classes, but we all just trained, you know. And there was days that, you know, you'd get beat by these guys, and it, you know, you knew why Greg was the world record holder, and you'd see him do things that were just weird, you know, like just like odd man strength, where you're like, how the fuck did they do that? And you know, that was, I think that's the cool thing I mentioned earlier about getting around a crew, is that, like, you know, and I'm sure with BJ, this is how you feel, Ryan. It's like, you know, he's doing stuff and it lights you up, right? And it fires you up, and it's like, fuck, how did you do that? Like, you know, and so they were just great training partners, and I'm so glad that I still get to talk to both of them, you know.
That's cool. Very cool. Okay. Roger Brome. AJ, if you had a CPAP at the time, do you think you would have felt safer gaining more weight?
I mean, I think Ryan kind of shared what his experience was, and so I think that if I had that, you know, honestly, I think if I had not thought I was going to die, then I you know, I probably wouldn't have ever left Westside, to be honest. I never thought I would. You know, when I moved there, that was it. Like, I expected to be there, you know, over a decade, like Tate, like those other guys, like, you know, and yeah, I didn't ever think I'd be the guy to leave. It was almost surreal looking back, like, how the fuck did that happen? But you know, when you're paranoid and those kind of things, it's no fun.
I really think that sleep apnea was holding back a lot of your potential, man. I just, you know, if you could rub a crystal ball and see that fork in the road, if you would have had a CPAP earlier in your career, oh Jesus, AJ. I mean, what it did for me, and what I've seen it do for other people, it's just a game changer. So, what do you got, Ashley?
Thrash Attack. Question for AJ. How would he program training for raw squats? And what is your favorite exercise for building legs in general? I'm a big fan of yours.
I mean, I wouldn't change programming. Like, I would still use conjugate system. What I would probably do is I would lower the box, you know, because like you raw squat is you got to train that bottom end more. You know, you don't have any stopping power, you don't have any rebound power. So I'd probably train my speed work would probably be on a lower box, you know, and I would play with my stance too, because like wide stance build narrow doesn't build wide.
Right.
There's research on that. There's all sorts of stuff. So you got to change your stances, but you also got to figure out where your strongest stance is, right? So you got to know you're not going to be wide stance raw, like, unless you're a phenom, right? So I would play with that, and then honestly probably more free squat stuff, you know, on max effort work. But I mean, I wouldn't really change much, because at the end of the day, like, our goal wasn't to be weak, you know, and we didn't train we did our speed work in briefs, but I didn't put my canvas suit on in training, like, ever. Now, I already mastered the gear before I got to Westside, right? So if you were trying to learn the gear, then you're going to have to put your gear on more, beginners and stuff. But when you get to a certain level, you know, you don't have to put the shirt on every week to get stronger, because as you know, the whole point of special movements is that, you know, we could do a football bar this week and max out, and our body's like, fuck, I got beat up, but you might hit 500. And then the next week you could do a straight bar and hit 600. But it's both some max effort. Both was, you know, the most you could do on the day, but there's 100-pound difference in load, right? And so your overall volume's different. And so you're waving this stuff. So if you're changing the bars and the stances and the accommodating resistance, you're constantly, the body, even though you're maxing out, the body's always going to be progressing. So that's really the only difference. And I would actually probably get a light pair of briefs and stuff to do overload work, or you do reverse band work and stuff like that, because I think one of the things that gear and board work and stuff like that is that you are handling more weights than you can do with, you know, normally, and it's a confidence booster, but it's also it trains the CNS. holding those weights in your hand, you're sure that lockout isn't doing shit for you. It's not holding you in place, like at least the Phenom was. It's not holding you in place. Like you're standing up with the weight, you're holding the weight. So like you're still doing that. And I know old school lifters would do a lot of pickups, right? So they'd get under the barbell, lots of weight, just stand up with it, hold it for 10 seconds, set it back down. So I do that. And then maybe one of the only differences with the squats is I might add some pause work in there, in the hole, just to completely eliminate that rebound,
Right.
force myself to learn that. But I wouldn't change much. I think that Burley Hawk's written some good stuff about Westside for raw lifters, and that's probably who I would go to if I wanted to really figure it out, because he's a lot stronger than me raw. So, but overall, I think the big misconception with Westside training is that it's for powerlifters. The reality is that it's just what Louis wrote about was powerlifting. But I mean, the amount of athletes that are trained there, sprinters, boxers, MMA fighters, he's always worked with a lot of different people. And, a lot of, like, you rarely see an NFL team or a college team, if they show the weight room, there's bands and there's chains.
That's right.
And, so whether they're doing it right or wrong, who knows? But, these methods aren't things that need to be changed between raw and geared. It's just, you obviously got a different strength curve, and you've got to figure out like where your weaknesses are. And some people are going to be grinders, some people are going to be explosive, and so you got to kind of train the opposite to that. Always trying to find your weaknesses. That's really what it's about. And you got strong hamstrings and glutes. Well, great. You probably need strong quads as well.
Right.
So you got to figure out where the weaknesses are and attack them.
Absolutely. Okay. This isn't a question, but I'm a huge fan of hers, so I'm going to read her comment here. Amber Hansen. It was super cool seeing you at the Pro-Am, AJ. Thanks so much for sharing these stories, and thanks Ryan and Ashley for hosting killer episode.
You're
super
welcome.
glad
Thank
to
you.
have you on here, Amber. Yes, you're very
Yeah,
welcome.
you guys, you should get her on the podcast. She's a
We actually have had her.
We've had her.
yeah.
A while back. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jimmy Cobe put us in touch with her. So yeah, she was great. Just
I think she'll be the
amazing.
first to bench 700.
I agree.
First woman to bench
Yep.
700.
I agree.
Yep. No, I agree totally. Just absolutely amazing.
And she can rollerblade on ramp.
Yeah, I've been watching your videos. How badass is that?
I'll
right?
have next time I go to Ohio, I'll take my BMX, and me and her can go to the skate park.
Hell yeah. Oh, I'd pay to see that. I want to be there, please. Let's see here. Mary Askew was asking, have you ever thought about opening your own gym?
Yeah. Actually, just recently, when I went back, I met with Tommy, and we kind of talked through like what the plans are for Westside, and we're gonna keep in contact. But like one of the things I'd like to get back into is just passing on the knowledge. And so like I'm gonna do a couple seminars probably with Luke Edwards, but talking to Tommy about potentially doing stuff specifically for coaches. But I would like a training center here so that I can shoot videos and do that kind of stuff, and just to have a place. So you're never going to be able to recreate Westside, but one of the things is like you don't find the equipment that we had there, and I think like for me it's like I've got probably like more bars in my garage than you find at your regular gym. So there's a couple of gyms that have good stuff, but not everything, and so I would like to be able to kit something out, and I don't think I'll ever open a gym and have memberships, but like it'd be a private facility, and I'd have crews and that kind of thing. So
Okay, very cool.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. Bonnie asks, does body weight matter if your goal is to lift heavy weight?
yeah.
I think we can all agree
I mean,
that
no.
weight moves weight.
I mean, you can get really, really strong at every weight class, but
right.
one of the easiest ways to lift more weight, and not except for the deadlift, is to gain weight.
That's true.
Louis always said you knew you were too big if your deadlift went down. That's how you knew you gained too much weight.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we had a friend that was talking about he's gotten bigger than he's ever been before. Deadlift is his lift. Like he's good at all of them, but he's really good at deadlift. And he's been trying to gain a lot of weight, like for his bench and to help his bench go up and stuff. And he's been noticing like it is messing with his deadlift. Like you said, like his stomach getting bigger is kind of messing with his deadlift. I don't think it's making it go down or anything, but he's like, it's a little different going down there now, you know, that belly in there. So
for sure. Yeah. I definitely benched more the bigger I was. That's
Same here.
I mean, I think we can all agree.
Weight moves weight.
Weight definitely moves weight.
Yeah.
Anthony Caruso, you guys are the best. At what point do you think geared lifting would stop carrying over to raw?
Well, I mean, I think that I don't know if it carries over in a sense that like I've now experimented with it enough to know that if I wore a slingshot or Widowmaker and a bench shirt every single week, if it would carry over. I've not trained exclusively in gear to know the other way. I think what you find is that the strongest people in gear are usually close to the strongest not in gear, right? And I remember when Scott had the record, he'd bench 700. I remember watching you bench over 600 like it was fucking nothing. Like, and so like, there was very few people able to do those things, and I look at Jimmy and I think there's no fucking way that guy's weak,
No.
but he wears his equipment a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that like if you exclusively wore gear, I don't think you'd get weaker, but I think that like you can't train 4 geared lifts, take it off and hit a world record raw.
No.
But I think like guys like Greg and even Matt Wenning and like guys who did lift raw, Brandon Lilly, those guys, it took them a minute to figure out the transition, but they all hit big fucking numbers raw. And they all trained in gear. So I think it's just like someone who's benching 200, 225, they put on a band shirt and bench 500, like it's not going to help their 225 go up probably, unless their weakness is lockout, right? And you suddenly have a much stronger lockout.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question. I've not really ever thought about that.
Yeah, no, totally. So this is one of our close friends, Cody Plum. How long will you give yourself to build up to the 1,000 pound bench? Not that I compare to you, but I tried to jump from a 633 poly to a 900 band shirt board press and broke an arm, which we were actually there for that.
I was there
and it
for
was
that.
horrifying. It was like, he destroyed
Yeah,
me.
so I've heard that a lot. I spoke with a couple of people when I was back in Ohio about it, and they were saying that like a lot of people aren't used to the speed, and so that shirt kind of like catapults it up, and then they don't catch it, and it kind of like that pressure down. So for me, like I've talked to different people, and I know that if I can get like back to around 500, I'm going to be able to like that shirt's going to be the right thing. So I'm actually just trying to stay out of the shirt until I get my numbers to where, until I get back to 5 raw. Like I'll wear a Widowmaker, I'll do board work, I'll do overload work, but I don't want to put a shirt on until I start handling heavier weights. So right now my goal is just every time I bench is just to do more. It's just do a little bit more until I find out, okay, once all of that, I'm getting those newbie gains right now, right?
Yeah.
Where once that slows down, then I'll be able to assess it. But I essentially think that I need about 12 months to be able to get to that level, but I'm giving myself 3 years. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to check in with people and stuff like that. But, luckily, I mean, I just had a DEXA scan done, and I have, my bone density is over 3 times the normal person. So, I still, even though I haven't lifted those kind of weights in 10 years, I still have the benefits of that.
That's right.
And as long as the joints can hold out, that's what I'm mostly worried about. All this fucking arthritis and shit that I got. But as long as I can keep the joints healthy, I don't know if I'll ever break a bone. And I'm not going to try to do anything crazy until I feel like that I have that fundamental strength back.
Sure.
So we'll see how it goes. If I break my arm and
well, AJ, don't rush it. Take your time with the 2-ply
got
shirt,
time.
and gradually move up when your body's ready. So
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I figure, I've always been good at listening to my body, and I figure that's the best course of action here, and we'll see how it goes. But I think I think if I was benching the 900 and there was the band shirt and I suddenly tried to jump to 11, I could have had problems, you know.
Right.
So because it is a big jump, you know. It's a massive difference if you're not used to handling it. You know, I always handled heavier weights off of boards and stuff. I never benched more in competition. Obviously, full range I benched more in competition, but I'd always handled heavier weights in competition, whether it was from bands being on the bar or chains or something like that. So, you know, I think that's going to be key. Is once I start to handle those heavy weights again, you know, I'll know where I am at and what I'm ready for. You know,
for sure. And Cody mentioned that he's 12 weeks out from surgery and back up to 240 raw. LOL. So he's hanging in there. He's recovering and hanging.
It'll come back quick. I've heard you never break a bone in the same place twice. So
yeah, I mean that's what they say is it should be strong. He's got he had to get like 2 rods in there and 13 pins, so it should be stronger than it was before. Sorry. Yeah. Anthony Caruso, if someone wanted to train with a top level lifter, what would you look for the most in that person who wanted to be able to train with people above them? Do you want me to reread the question?
It's kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah. If someone wanted to train with a top level lifter, what would you look for the most in that person who wanted to be able to train with people above them?
Oh, I think he's asking, like, if someone wanted to go train with Ryan, like, what would Ryan look for in that person? And I think we both talked about this. It's a commitment. Like, show the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, and like, honestly, like, why did Brent let me train with him? Why did Ryan sit there and listen to me? Like, the reality is because, like, they could see the passion.
That's right.
And then, you know, after you've stuck around for a while, okay, this guy's committed, you know. And that was, I mean, Brent didn't let me squat in the monolift for probably 6 months. You know, I had to squat in the power rack. I had to earn my right to squat in the monolift. But he didn't tell me I couldn't train there. He just wanted to make sure I kept showing up.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the key. Like Louis always, you know, people would come and if they weren't ready, he'd say, you know, go away, you know, hit these numbers and then maybe we'll consider, you know, like, so like people like you have to let people earn their way. And most people, you know, will quit quick. So I think from my experience, I obviously don't know all the top lifters, but I've yet to meet someone that if someone said, hey, I want to train with you, and you say, okay, we train 4 times a week, and they're like, all right, when? And then they showed up, I don't think any top lifter wouldn't appreciate that. I think good training partners are the hardest fucking thing to come by. So if you're if you're just dedicated and show them a level of commitment, you know, I think that's really what speaks volumes. And they don't even have to be strong, you know. That's because you know they'll get there, you know. That's the difference.
Yep, just have to be committed and consistent. Absolutely. And then Cody Plum just mentioned, I think your solid technique will keep you safe. I believe I let the bar get back in my hand too much. That was very interesting and made sense about the speed in a band. I lower too slowly. So just kind of, and then the last one that we have here, Mr. Elite Entertainment. And this was one of the questions that we asked you. And so he probably just missed that part. But if you could go back in time and do it all again, what would you do differently? So I know we answered that one.
Yeah. Is that the last one?
That's the last
one.
Okay. So had anything to add to that one, but that is the last one. I know it's super late, so we can totally let you go. We appreciate your time. This has been awesome. 3 hours worth.
Yeah, thank you, AJ. I really didn't think it would go this long. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate it.
Had a blast.
Yeah, no, it was really fun.
I hope we can stay in touch, and if you ever get up this way, I mean, let us know. Like to train with you or come out and visit or do something. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That would be fun, and we'll see about that meet, see what's going on.
Kennelly Classic. I was gonna throw that out there one more time.
I don't know if I'd be ready to compete.
Even if you didn't want to do it, we'd love to have you here and just check it out.
I'd like to come down to San Diego too. Beautiful city down there. Beautiful. Just we need to get out of Washington sometime. We get stuck up here too long. Yeah.
I mean, we went to LA a few months ago.
Yeah, we were down in LA at Mendelssohn's. We went to a contest there.
Or see Mendelssohn and do a meet there. So that was the most we've gotten out in a while. Kind of boring, but.
Well, AJ, I appreciate your time.
We really do appreciate it.
Are you
It's
still
been
there with us?
awesome.
Yep.
Okay,
thanks.
okay.
Anything else?
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, AJ.
Is there anything else you want to add before we
shut down?
disconnect?
Anything you like
Any-
to
any
plug?
shout
Anything?
outs
Shout out.
or
Oh yeah,
anything?
just if people are interested, we have the Conjugate Strong Facebook group. It's just facebook.com, I think, Conjugate Strong, and it's a bunch, just quite a few people in there, but it's everybody in there trains conjugate and,
Okay.
and just shares training and asks for feedback and stuff like that. And free group, we I've never charged anything for it. It was just
Is
kind of
that
my
on
way of
Facebook,
trying
AJ?
to- yeah, on
Okay.
Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'll join that group. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
I
don't-
was just
I'm not
thinking that. I'm
joined
gonna go on there.
Too many groups on there.
Yeah.
Might as well.
No,
So-
I don't either, but that's definitely one worth.
Yeah.
Worth
Well, AJ, it's
hitting
been a
up for
pleasure,
sure.
and
yeah, no, this has been amazing.
Let's not be strangers, man. I haven't talked to you in so long, and it's crazy. I mean, life is short, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to go another 10, 12 years without saying hi to you. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Keep in touch
sure.
for sure.
Yeah. well,
All right, we'll talk soon, guys. Thanks
All
so
right,
much for
AJ,
having
thank
me.
you very much,
so
everybody.
much. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.